And we are live once again. How are you doing, Christopher Sandbatch?
Dude, I'm pretty good. Every once in a while something will happen to me that makes me think I really do have ADHD. And I have a Mexican novelist friend. I call him a Mexican novelist friend. He gave me he gave me a whole Altoids can full of assorted amphetamine salts. And I took one of them. And then I got calm, and I'm like, oh shit, that's not a good sign. But so I got told yesterday. I had told yesterday that I'm delightfully unfiltered or something along those lines. So I'll try to keep it up.
I think that's true. So, how are you feeling about the end of Aberration in the Heartland of the Real?
I mean, I'm sad it's over, but one of the things that's interesting is that Wendy herself, I don't know how she feels about it being over, because I have noticed through following her on Twitter that she religiously composes threads, and in a lot of ways they frequently seem like extensions of the material. You know what I mean? So she's still with it. So it's ending, but I also almost don't feel like it's ending, because if I want to find more Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, I just got to go on over to Bird Wendy's Twitter, and there she is.
And you could just get the subsequent subsequent stuff sort of trickled out, like the notes from the sequel, which may never materialize, to be honest. We want it to.
She said she's working on
she says she's working on the sequel.
Oh, okay. So that she has a nominal reason.
That's right. So let's see here. Did anything interesting happen this week in the world of conspiracies or developments?
Yeah, I'm looking for a thread now. Okay, so yeah. What was that? Did someone died in a house fire, didn't they?
Carol Howe.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But this was not the only person that died, not the only person of OKC bombing interest that died in a house fire.
Two of them. Nothing like a house fire, right?
I'm trying to find the other one, but it was I was I wonder if Wendy knows, because I wonder if
wasn't there an FBI agent who said that they had a bunch of information about it, and then they just randomly died shortly thereafter?
It was earlier this year, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, because we're in the middle of this Trump administration shit where we're doing glasnost or perestroika or whichever one of them means, openness, and we're unsealing all the JFK files and everything. But I'm starting to believe that that's not actually the case at all. And what's really going on is some stuff is being released, and then the feds are quietly sloping around and doing, snuff out operations. So again, if I disappear in the next couple of days, I am of sound mind right now.
I mean, I'm just saying, even if you had no information.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not any crazier than I normally am. There's nothing different than there normally is.
Right. That's right. So, anyway, all right. Maybe I'm feeling a little low energy. It's a little bittersweet to be on the last sort of rung on this ladder, right?
You've been at it way longer than me.
This is the 27th episode, so you just have to think that I've done 78 hours of this, and so we're gonna peak over 80. We're gonna get to 81 or 82 hours. This might be a long stream. Who knows?
It's like Daryl Cooper tier. Daryl Cooper tier length of focusing on one. I love Daryl Cooper personally. He's one.
I like Martyr Maid. Shout out Martyr Maid.
And I don't know that he knows this, but no shortage of material that has gone into his shows its ultimate provenance is me, because one of his researchers is one of my best friends, and he'll like get in touch with me and he'll ask me for stuff, and then it goes off in an unmarked packet. But Daryl's ability to concentrate turbo autistically on one relatively like low key subject for an extended period of time fascinates me. Like the Jim Jones stuff. It was just hours and hours of material on Jim Jones, and I'm like, I'm not going through that much.
You just don't. It's just a block in terms of your willingness to expose yourself to it. Or
dude, my MA thesis was less than 50 pages.
Oh, you're just brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah.
Or you
no,
just can't handle it.
Yeah, like just like incredibly long, like what is that book that one Prude's been covering forever? Now, I mean, I'm having fun here. This is great because I could be like riding along. And the next book that we're covering is actually one of my
the next book is a special, or the next thing we're covering is a special on Jolly on West.
Yeah,
which, by the way, is not going to be on Thursday. It's going to be on Monday.
The Monday night slot. Monday night is the dead slot.
That's the dead slot right now.
Yeah,
that's right. So we're doing we're swapping over to Mondays so that we don't have to be up against OGC, and we're gonna have a few surprises. We're gonna have a few surprises for season 2, officially season 2 of Library of Mass Destruction.
I don't even know what these surprises are.
You don't even know. Yeah, not even Sandbatch knows. Only I am in the know.
The surprise is Sandbatch gets killed on episode 1.
we execute Sandbatch and replace him with yet another co-host. You're like the drummer from Spinal Tap. So, all right, let's dive in. We're gonna have a long one here. So. Let's get going. All right. Epilogue. Wearing the wolf's head. You don't fight the fight you know you can win. You fight the fight you have to fight, whether you can win or not. Jesse Trentadue, February 2015, who you may remember as the brother of the man who was executed for being mistaken as an Aryan Republican Army thief. Bank robber, really. Caput gerat lupinum. What does that mean, Sandbatch?
It means let him bear the wolf's head, but it's caput gerat.
Caput, yeah, caput, yeah, caput.
And G is a weird one.
It says it right in the next thing. Yeah, let him bear the wolf's head.
You got us again, Wendy.
An old English common law writ of outlawry. Once issued, an outlawed individual was stripped of all legal protections and recourse and banished from society, after which they became, in the eyes of the law, a wolf or other wild animal who could be legally hunted down and killed by any person who found or encountered them. Bring that back. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Yeah. We do have some elements of it. They're called crimes of indemnity. And they will occasionally be brought back. Like famously, it's hard to do now because the southern states all named a bunch of crimes of indemnity as soon as they got a chance to like take back control of their own shit, and they're all tied up in the Ku Klux Klan acts now. So you can't do that. But we had that. I mean, we really had it. Texas had it as recently as
It's kind of it only happens if you're like Edward Snowden.
Yeah, right? yeah. That's, I mean, like there are certain people they'll be functionally beyond the law, but in like Texas in particular was kind of famous. Texas has all kinds of weird shit. Like they have a crime called misdemeanor murder, which think about that. But like they did as recently as like the 1930s have people that they would just be like, like they just put a bounty on somebody's head, like bring that boy back dead, and. I don't know, probably not since the 60s. That would be interesting to find out when the last time.
I think we need to bring back writs of marque and reprisal.
I'm absolutely about that. I'm all about it.
We need privateers again. We need privateers not only on the high seas. We need We need land privateers.
Dog the bounty hunter.
We need to do a blanket writ of marque and reprisal for every American citizen against every illegal. That's what we need.
That would there would be so much. There would be such a flurry of action. But like, yeah, I mean, we should I think we should do this with ships as well. We should be like, yeah, go sink as many Chinese fishing ships as you can.
No shit. Whatever
you find.
Fuck those fishing boats. Yeah. Wipe them out. Yeah, for ecological reasons, not for geopolitical reasons. Yeah, I think the left and the right can come together on the Chinese fishing fleets just strip mining the waters of the planet. In any case, the headline of a June 1995 letter to the Chicago Tribune asked if Timothy McVeigh was Oswald's ghost. Not possessed by Oswald, said the writer. The ghost of Lee Harvey Oswald could be seen hovering around McVeigh. Either way, both men offered the public what it wanted, a face and an explanation. A name upon which to hang the outrage of a grieving country. While the current location of Oswald's ghost is unknown to me, I find it ironic, comically strange almost, that the confusion about the finality of McVeigh's death exists not only among the most fantastical of internet conspiracy theorists, and McVeigh himself, but also among those who propagate the official version of events, that of the lone wolf, including McVeigh himself. The perfect and perhaps most extreme example of this occurred on April 19, 2010, the 15th, of course, anniversary of the bombing, when MSNBC aired a 2-hour special, The McVeigh Tapes, Confessions of an American Terrorist, narrated by Rachel Maddow. Reviews of the special announced McVeigh is dead and yet very much with us. And McVeigh's victims were silenced forever, but their killer, it turns out, lives on.
God, that's so 2010.
I'm
trying to like, I was like, when I was like, we were going over this, I was trying to imagine this being recorded, this being produced. Actually, I don't know. I don't have a television, so I have no idea what's on television now. But like, who wants to? There was a time when people would sit there and listen to Rachel Maddow talk for 2 hours.
I deliberately sought out some recent Rachel Maddow, and the thing that is most notable about recent Rachel Maddow is that her tone and delivery has converged with Tucker Carlson's.
Oh, that's wild.
It's really weird. Just like the cadence.
Her haircut too.
The haircut. She started wearing bow ties.
Yeah.
She's becoming him 20 years ago. She has started to like converge on Tucker Carlson's delivery. It's really weird. And if I feel like there's some sort of like weird Dopplering effect, like you could make a supercut of both of them talking and it would be eerie.
You could go straight to the third D.
Yes, already experiencing dread. Lightning NC, bring back exile as a punishment, of course. Yeah, I mean, we should do that. We should totally bring back exile. Exile is better than is what we should do for like various non-capital crimes. We should never it's something like if you have like a really high level financial crime or something like that, you should get exiled.
Crimes of infamy are the ones that I was thinking of, not indemnity.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you should get exiled for like the Enron guy should have gotten exiled and like been forced to stay in, I don't know, Algeria.
Yes,
somewhere really shitty,
some really really bad country.
Yeah, we just like set. It's Burundi. Just like, oh, you got to stay
exile to Burundi.
Sorry, we have this treaty with Lesotho that says that all of our exiles has to stay there, and also we have a treaty with South Africa stating that all of our convicts have to stay in Lesotho. And turns out Lesotho is completely surrounded by South Africa. So. But exile, excellent Excellent idea. We can deport Americans too, just because it's fair. It's more fair that way. Anyhow, although presented as a documentary, its theatrical production places it more accurately in the category of docufiction. I think the word is docudrama nowadays. A genre wherein documentary and fiction breed to create a better truth. The show used a lookalike actor to portray McVeigh in key scenes leading up to and after the bombing. Sequences made more realistic by digitally placing McVeigh's face, mapped in 3D, over the actors and overlaying previously unheard audio tapes of prison interviews with McVeigh conducted by the authors of American Terrorist. Viewers hear McVeigh narrate his confession while simultaneously witnessing cartoonish versions of Nichols and McVeigh building the bomb. McVeigh alone, pulling the writer up to the front of the Murrah Building, igniting the detonation fuse, and calmly walking away as the ground shakes underneath him. Such scenes are interspersed with interviews of victims' family members, survivors, first responders, defense and prosecution attorneys, law enforcement officials, McVeigh's former friends, and Dr. John Smith, his now deceased prison psychologist. I think that when they make shit like that, it is to deliberately implant false memories in the public.
Of course it is. It's exactly what it is. And I was like sitting here thinking, oh man,
maybe there's going to be people who think that they saw, there's going to be people who think that they saw a video that was real of Timothy McVeigh walking away from the bomb all alone.
Right. I mean, it's like, it's the way your sort of brain works is that like, even for things that to do this. So yeah, I think I've told my wildest LSD. That's probably not my wildest LSD story, but one time, this was when I was very young. I was probably 17. I took a massive dose of LSD, and I was waiting on my friends to come pick me up from my parents' house, and I was waiting on it to come up, and I started reading the book Guns of August. Okay. The book Guns, it's a book. There's no pictures in it or whatever. But the way it sort of works is I sort of visually entered the text. Okay, and as a result, I have like quote. These are putting Wendy quotes around this. Near photographic memories of like very specific scenes from 1914 as they were related in the book Guns of August. So you could do this with non-visual material. Any sort of visual imprint that you can place on it, the human mind naturally is just, it's like, oh, that's either what it looked like or as close to what it looked like as we're going to get, And so they'll start imagining that that's what the world, this is why TV and films, all this, a lot of these things make me uncomfortable, and I don't really mess with them a whole lot. Because, I mean, you start deviating away from events as they actually happened into this kind of fantasy realm. And, I was sitting here thinking we should make slightly altered AI films of like the Zapruder footage or something like that to like clearly
Zapruder?
that clearly show a shooter on the grassy knoll and turn it loose on Zoomers.
Oh my God. Well, okay, so I think we may have mentioned this on the show before, but most people have a memory of watching the second tower get hit on 9/11.
Yeah,
right. Most people have a memory of being told that one of the towers had been hit and to turn on the TV, always by a family member. Or sometimes by a coworker, but usually a family member, and turning it on just in time to watch the second tower get hit live.
Right.
And that is not a thing that occurred. It is not a thing that occurred except for like one station in the New York area, but which is obviously not most of the world.
Right.
And so there are these things that get read back into people's minds, and like a lot of the times that ends up being the so-called Mandela effect.
Yeah.
So it's these it's the way stories are told that cause that cause these, inaccurate memories because of the way that they are framed.
You could do it with language too. It's harder to do with language because you like with just language, especially if the person is like, you could do it with a book, but if the person is more attentive, if it's a higher IQ person, it's more difficult to do with a book. There's a bar is very low to do this with image materials.
Right. So
we know all this, by the way, because of the research of path-breaking bioethicist Joyline West.
Right. Exactly. Which we will read on Monday. Let's see here. Further heightening the emotional intensity, viewers near McVeigh's cold and callous thoughts about survivors and victims' family members. Maddow comments that despite her opposition to capital punishment, McVeigh's profoundly unsympathetic, even repugnant statements caused her to rethink this position. The authors of American Terrorist appear and inform viewers of a recent rise in the militia and Tea Party movements, an increase in weapons purchases and stockpiling, and swelling anti-government angst in response to growing government regulations, widespread unemployment, and healthcare reform debates. Maddow, the Ann Coulter of the political left, Wendy, what are we doing? Concludes by saying that even though 9 years have passed since his execution, we're left worrying that Timothy McVeigh's voice from the grave echoes in a new rising tide of American anti-government extremism. Reviewers described the anniversary special as creepy, jarring, scary, and chilling, a cautionary tale, a somber warning about unchecked fanaticism, and the danger posed by fringe lunatics who cannot distinguish between fantasy and reality. Oops. How ironic. A not too subtle reminder of the need to monitor dangerous individuals, ideologies, and groups.
Because fringe lunatics who cannot distinguish between fantasy and reality.
Yes, exactly.
King Salmonfish is currently holding a live space with 800 members.
Wonderful. Well, and people have been shown a docudrama and interpreted it as a document of the past, right? Which is why we, in general, should always would be well advised to read primary sources. Obviously, this book is a secondary source, but it is the an omnibus of all information on this topic. Of course,
I think she's like this again. I was talking about this last week. I usually don't I've got the history background and everything. I usually don't really at this point because I've read like 800 history monographs and I've gotten to the point where I don't like them anymore. This is an especially good one. She's like, this is like a rare instance, probably in the top 5 that I've ever read, because she actually did what she was supposed to. I'm like, wow, Wendy's a true believer.
Yeah. She I mean, and she also, she ended up making like some, if you follow Wendy Painting at Bird Wendy, I believe is her
Bird Wendy 2. Yeah, she got banned. She got banned for building end towers. The other, she's on her second one.
Not true, of course. But Bird Wendy 2. She'll talk about, and she had a recent thread on it, that she made some like personal connections with the people who she interviewed for this book. And she is in possession of mounds of research mounds of primary source documents that literally nobody else has. And so
that's an interesting position to be in.
She lived this topic during the creation of this book, and she continues to live it, although probably to a slightly lesser degree.
Right. That's an interesting position to be in, actually, to be like, yeah, I mean, these primary sources exist, but they're also in my possession. So there's like, oh, did you fabricate the sources? It's actually that's actually.
Well, she has a chain. She has the chain of title on the chain of possession on all of these things.
Right. Yeah. Because that's really, really important to have.
I mean, it kind of is, considering the people who were involved. So, it would be a shame if, there was some sort of fire. Nothing like a fire.
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry, Wendy just disappears one day. It's like, oh, we don't. If I was her, I would not sleep in the same building those documents were in.
No kidding.
That's me. It's just me being real, Like,
if I was her, I think I probably wouldn't sleep. To be honest,
let's face it. Though, from the way she tweets, sometimes I think she doesn't.
That's a bit plausible. I don't know how a person writes a 25 tweet thread with 30 seconds in between every post, that are extremely detailed recollections of events.
Oh, she composes them. Some people do this. It's amazing to me. Some people compose tweet threads and then release them that. I've never done that before. It's very rare for me to even get to a second draft of a very large document that I'm producing. How it comes out the first time is usually how you're going to get it. So I never do that. All of my tweeting, it's I feel like tweeting about this, and boom, there it happens.
Yeah. All right. Despite its dehumanizing and villainous depiction of him, the McVeigh tapes nevertheless relied upon McVeigh as a primary, credible, and authoritative source of information about both himself and the bombing. The motives and veracity of McVeigh's lone wolf story, like those of the experts, FBI agents, or the government officials featured in the show, are left unchallenged and unquestioned. Through critical omissions, the McVeigh tapes dismisses a wealth of conflicting evidence about the facts of the bombing plot, including those particulars that had recently surfaced. This, coupled with the emotional narratives of the bombing victims that circumvent critical audience reception, impose upon the viewer a historical truth, in scare quotes.
Yeah.
The questioning of which is equated to the very types of devilish ideology and psychological disturbance supposedly typified by McVeigh himself. So true. And basically the point we were making, right?
Yeah.
The blending of authoritative experts and officials, narrator commentary, emotionally laden testimony, and the posthumous voice of McVeigh with cartoonish video game graphics create the illusion of reality and transform acts of political violence into digestible popular memes whose worth is found in their perceived entertainment value rather than the factual or evidentiary integrity. Hey, I resemble that remark.
Yeah, she's doing a little grad student bit here.
Yeah. Well, except we're also kind of doing that. Except that is what we're kind of doing here.
It's totally what we're doing. But she does also she veers dangerously close to a defense of Timothy McVeigh here. He's like, there's exonerating evidence that wasn't presented in this documentary. And it's like, oh, whatever.
I don't think I don't think that after reading this someone could certainly take any variety of passages out of context in this book.
Right.
I don't think she really makes the thesis that he was innocent. I think she makes the thesis that he was not alone in various extremely, extremely subtle and pernicious ways. He was not alone. So in this way, the McVeigh tapes is an artifact that exemplifies mass-mediated spectacles of terrorism, terms that refer to the porousness and fluidity of boundaries between fact, fiction, news, and entertainment. The show not only rendered McVeigh, we love those boundaries, don't we, folks? We love those fluid boundaries.
This paragraph is pure Sandbatchism. She's on fire.
That's right. Terms that refer to the porousness and fluidity of boundaries between fact, fiction, news, and entertainment. The show not only rendered McVeigh the first terrorist to come back from the dead and scare American television viewers, but perfectly illustrates the ongoing and aggressive nature of a large body of lone wolf text to present self-evident truths about both McVeigh and the bombing through a self-authorizing framework and in a manner that resists alternate information and interpretations.
Wow, I would say it sounds like, God, who would come up with something like that?
Are you looking for the word dimensionality?
No, I'm who would come up with a self-authoring narrative that resists criticism and sort of tends to absorb like sort of exonerative or contradictory plot elements into its own narrative and regurgitate them. Oh man, who would do that?
I mean, this is very Landian. Yeah.
It's turbo. And if you read that thing that I did about my own MK Ultra scorecard, that's what it says I do.
No, it does. Oh yes, that is so true. Mm-hmm. That is so true. I would say that is also, by the way, the critique of capitalism that came out of all of the CCRP people.
Yeah. It's exactly right.
Let's see here. Yeah, I almost want to like do a little special read where you go through your thing. Although we did kind of discuss it at length in the previous episode. But anyway, check out Sandbatch's Substack for a detailed coverage of his own AI MK Ultra experiment.
I got really emotional at the end of it. It was wild. I wasn't expecting that to happen.
Yeah. Let's see. In February 2012, the FBI issued a warning about the resurgence of lone wolf terrorism, whose perpetrators they compared to Timothy McVeigh, the prototypical lone wolf extremist. The recurring comparisons of newer lone wolves weaned on hate to McVeigh used terminology, labels, descriptions, and media framing to explain their actions, ideologies, and motivations, remarkably similar, and in some cases exactly the same, as those used in initial media reports about McVeigh himself. Often detailed are perpetrators' transformations from boy next door to homegrown lone wolves. Such texts, while keeping with the lone wolf script that asserts the bombing plot was a lonely one, is still able to implicate broader segments of society by equating them with McVeigh, a phenomenon the New Yorker referred to in January 2016 as the McVeigh stigma. Not content to leave dead enough alone, reports of this type warn of the ubiquitous specter of militia past, the ghostly gang who assumedly keeps McVeigh company in the afterlife when not busy rising from the dead, intent on infecting others with the not quite clinical affliction of McVeigh madness. It's so weird. So just to go back a little bit, how they talked about the Tea Party movement. What a bizarre like in the McVeigh tapes. What a bizarre thing to equate to Timothy McVeigh.
Well, do you remember when the Tea Party like first erupted? I remember the first time. I remember where I was the first time I saw anything like the Tea Party.
Yeah, I remember when the Tea Party and Occupy were happening at the same time and had shared goal.
You're right. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
People were 100% like, people understood that they had the same goals and were willing to like reach across the aisle. And that shit got demographically replaced by demographic replacement. Like,
I mean, that was when the woke curtain came down. Like that's what caused the woke curtain to come down.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. The entire identity politics thing occurred as an immune response, but calling it an immune response makes it sound less intentional. It was extremely intentional. It all occurred as a regime response in order to protect their bag. So,
right. Yeah. Anybody's reading who might be too young to really remember the Obama administration, they were doing like government media collusion on a scale that is like unknowable in the Trump administration, because it's just impossible to imagine Trump being able to find that many people who are willing to go along with him. Like, you know, like we actually really kind of see.
And also it was hyper competent, to be clear. Like it was way more competent. They tried to run the same playbook in Biden, but they just didn't have a quarterback.
There was no Rahm Emanuel. There was no Eric Holder. Like, I mean, you can really look at like the Obama. I get mad just thinking about it. I'm not even going down that. That was like, it was like a hall of mirrors for 8 years. Like there was like nothing was real for like 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Where'd Obama come from anyway? and I don't mean Hawaii or a country in Africa. I mean, like, politically speaking, it's crazy how we, really have somewhat nebulous history on a guy who was the president for 8 years and is still runs like a shadow Democratic Party, right? Like, because he's not plugged in with Pelosi. Like, he's not in the Pelosi crew. He's not in the Clinton crew. Fucking Hillary Clinton hates him. So anyway, imagine Paul Ryan bombing a federal building, and that's what happened. That's what the Tea Party got turned into. So.
Well, I was going to say, but I do remember, like, in the Tea Party operation, it did initially, when it erupted, because there's just not as many of the old militia guys. The alt-right really just totally replaced, like, sucked all of the wind out of the air of, like, what might have normally gone towards like a revitalized militia movement. But the really early Tea Party, the way I was exposed to them, I was walking down the street because I was living in Charleston at the time. So walking down the street in Charleston, and there was like a bunch of old boomers fucking dressed up in, like, some of them were in their plate carriers, and some of them were in Revolutionary War garb. So I mean, it was initially, it was a lot of the same people, but I don't know. The specter of the militia thing seems to be mostly dead now. So it's like,
well, the last gasp of it was. I mean, I don't think you can actually count. I don't think you can count the Unite the Right rally, and I don't think you can count J6th. I think that the last one was actually the Clive and Bundy ranch thing.
Oh yeah, God.
In his dispute with the other BLM in 2014. Remember, so like during the initial phase of Black Lives Matter, there was like while riots were happening, I believe maybe it happened. While the riots were happening, for the death of Michael Brown, right? Clive and Bundy and his crew had seized a Bureau of Land Management facility, and they hung out there for weeks, right?
Yeah, I remember.
It ended up being like a couple like low level skirmishes where one of the guys who was a major figurehead ended up getting killed.
Yes, the thing I remember was the send snacks message. Where like the Bundy kid was like, he was like, "Don't need to send snacks." What?
Nice.
Just need those super chats, by the way.
Oh yeah, y'all need to send snacks. Yeah. I moved over here to Africa, and they got this bullshit no snacks.
That was one of the best things I saw on the internet this week.
That was
ain't no water here. They got spiders. These spiders is big, spiders. Y'all.
Yeah. Turns out it's way better in God's country. Oh God. Yeah. Owen Zaleski, get an entropy. Yes, so true. We will have an entropy for season 2. I've made a point of doing it, so don't worry, it will occur. Let's see here. The acts prevented acts or ascribed fantasies of terrorists next door, including apparently undead ones, even when their ideological motivation, if any, is unclear, provoke political and cultural debates about the need for measures to prevent, detect, and punish actual or aspiring terroristic wolves like those enacted in the aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing. These debates weigh the demands for tighter security measures in public spaces, stricter gun laws, and mental health screenings against the preservation of civil liberties, with the latter usually getting the short end of the stick. Of course, now, as we all know, civil liberties groups do not exist anymore. There are no civil liberties groups, essentially, that exist anymore. There are still, economic openness groups that exist, but there are essentially no civil liberties groups left. ACLU just advocates for bio-Leninism. The NRA is toast. I name another one. I don't know. Like
those were the only two.
Those were the two. So, yeah, they don't exist now. It turns out that you just can't ratchet the tensions up forever, and you can't capture these previously principled institutions with states of exception and still have that. So thanks. We could have all benefited from the old ACLU, but you just I guess hate crime legislation was more important. So let's see here. For 2 decades, the name Timothy McVeigh has functioned as shorthand in discussions about lone wolf terrorists. The threat of white wing ideologies, mass shooters, conspiracy theorists, disgruntled veterans, and dissenters generally. Given the conflicting information that has ceaselessly surfaced since his 2001 execution, the tendency to do so is simplistic and unproductive at best, intentionally deceptive and agenda-driven at worst. Whatever the intent, when the name McVeigh is mentioned in reports, usually as a means of demonizing other people and groups, everybody knows what is being discussed, or at least venomously think and assert that they do. But they don't. Wendy, you are an expert. That's true. Wendy is the only expert I trust. I trust her on this exact topic implicitly. I believe she's put the work in and has earned it and is not trying to sell me something.
She's got like such like nerdy girl in the back of the classroom with like a whole box of color-coded markers vibes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's I have no idea what her life must be like or was like prior to writing this book.
Yeah.
But yeah. While born scenario enthusiasts claim the lonely wolf lived on, those who tote the official line might make it tote the official line. Would it be toe the line, right?
Yeah, it works.
Make an even stranger claim, or when not explicated, an even stranger subtextual implication. In their minds, Lone Wolf McVeigh died, but then somehow managed to return from the dead and possess untold numbers of potential terrorists who must be exorcised of his unconquerable soul by whatever means necessary. It seems to me they don't want McVeigh to die, that his absence would rob them of a convenient spectral demon who reliably offers a means of reducing the complexities of actual threats to buzzwords, pop psychology, and politically expedient narratives. I mean, that's what he is. He's a politically expedient narrative, both in life and in death.
That was also Sandbatch. She almost used de-dimensionalize. Like she got really close. She got really close to de-dimensionalize there.
For all the talk of understanding violence and those who commit it, talk that tends to increase budgets, pass legislation, and justify unrelated, restrictive, and intrusive measures, but never actually dampens the initially proclaimed threat. I'm not convinced the people who, sincerely or with an agenda, tout the McVeigh as lone wolf or even pack story without the watched wolf caveat, or who label politically undesirables as McVeighs, really want to understand much of anything. Here's why. Like the something about the here's why. It's like, you'll love point 3. You know what I mean? You just decided to go with this was kind of being written when that type of clickbait title was Genesis. While the details of lone wolf accounts have remained consistent, after McVeigh's 2001 execution, all other narrative variations became increasingly complex, due in part to the continuing emergence of case-related information, resulting from ongoing formal and informal investigative, legal, and academic efforts. In 2006, congressional oversight investigation, more than In a 2006 congressional oversight investigation, more than one major network television expose, scholarly works, ongoing lawsuits, and countless investigative journalism reports have continued to document additional instances of informants' warnings and other intelligence failures pertaining to the OKC bombing, comparable to those that occurred prior to the events of September 11th, 2001. Included are 2 academically published books, both written by scholars of politically contentious social movements and former Jones team consultants. The first of these was Indiana State University criminologist Mark Ham's In Bad Company, America's Terrorist Underground, published in 2001, and the second, Lamar University sociologist Stuart Wright's book, Patriots, Politics, and the Oklahoma City Bombing, published in 2007. Both report what Ham coined the multiple John Doe number 2 theory, consisting of the usual litany of assorted bank robbers, white separatists, neo-Nazis, and gun show attendees. Both note the present gun show attendees could be.
You got me all 3 times, Wendy.
Yeah. Both note the presence of more than a few federal agency and watchdog organization informants among the conspirators and their attempts to warn authorities about an impending attack. It's almost like they knew and didn't want to stop it, man. You think? In Bad Company, valuable for its sociological insight, telling a more plausible story of the bomb plot than that of the lone wolf, and noting many of the related failures of intelligence surrounding the bombing, does not proffer possible reasons for the failures or explore the ways in which networks of informants contributed to the plot. Right placed. Well, yeah.
She's like, they just pointed out the failures, but they didn't explain why,
Yeah, they did. Like, you have the sociological insight. You're talking about the terrorist underground, and you note that there were informants who shared the information, and the informants were in these networks, but did not point out that they contributed, or that they could have plausibly been assumed to have contributed.
Wait a minute.
Right? Wright placed the bombing in the context of an escalating trajectory of contention between insurgents and agents of social control. In the years leading to the bombing, both sides of the conflict, patriot movement versus law enforcement officials, watchdog groups, and policy makers, increasingly employed dramatic war narratives about the need to neutralize the looming threat represented by the other. This was aided in large part by sensationalized media reports that only confirmed and fueled their perceptions, resulting in and justifying acts of violence by the insurgents, and the increased use of militaristic tactics by the law enforcement agencies, think Waco, Breeby Ridge, etc. Budget increases and the passage of arguably unnecessary legislation.
You asked me at the start, like, how do I feel about this? I'm glad we're almost done with Wendy, because that paragraph got me sexually excited. And if this went on much longer, I would have to do a DM slide.
Oh my God. Wendy, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Sorry. That's right. Wood pit. Yawn number 1. Sorry, folks. It happens occasionally. My breath control has gotten better. You'd think at 80 hours, it does improve the breath control.
I don't even notice them.
Well, Wood Pit's on the ball. He's got a little ticker in his hand, and he's going to tell us exactly how many yawns there are in season 1 of LMD. We're going for single digits season 2. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh no, I can't remember.
Wonderful.
Couldn't have been that important.
Wright noted the ways in which the sizable body of case-related information linking McVeigh to other conspirators that surfaced since 2001 allowed for the construction of a more complete picture, one very different from the government's lone wolf theory that had steadily disintegrated with each new revelation. Included among them, but somehow not prompting another investigation. Included among them was a Secret Service memo uncovered by Associated Press investigative journalist John Solomon in 2004. The memo referred to security cameras around the Murrah, stating the security videotapes from the area show the truck detonation 3 minutes and 6 seconds after the suspects, plural, exited the truck. While the FBI and federal prosecutors denied the existence of any such footage, the memo was allowed to be entered in as evidence during Nichols' 2004 state trial. This and other newly discovered, in scare quotes, evidence about the others unknown created significant reasonable doubt among jurors and significantly undermined the story of the bombing as told by the FBI and DOJ. The continual appearance of newly discovered evidence, such as the memo within media headlines and news reports, was followed by the FBI's announcement in early 2004 that they planned to conduct a formal review of their previous investigation and initiate a new inquiry into McVeigh's connections to the right-wing underground, the results of which have yet to be revealed.
Yeah. I wonder if they have yet.
Probably not.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna just say this was an announcement that they were investigating, and then they didn't assign anyone to the actual investigation, and so it's theoretically ongoing.
Right.
But no one's working on it.
Yeah. No way that got past Doge.
Also, by the way, watchdog groups. What's the difference between a watchdog group and a militia?
It's man. It's so close. Like that one.
One file's a 990, but they're both government funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. More importantly, for the purpose of this discussion, Wright's conception of a much larger bombing plot did not just mention, but emphasize the proliferation of undercover informants and related intelligence gathering efforts of law enforcement agencies prior to the bombing. Ultimately, Wright concluded much more vigorously than Ham, who didn't seem to think it all that important that several state and federal officials from different agencies had varying degrees of foreknowledge of the impending bombing, or one reason or another neglected to act on this foreknowledge and thereby failed to prevent it. This was, of course, not a new or unique theory, but one whose legitimization outside of paranoid circles was aided in part by Wright's scholarly status. Wright went a few steps further than just documenting prior knowledge. He also called attention to the FBI's destruction of critical photographic and video evidence, a pattern noted but left unexplained. The deep embedding of intelligence agents and assets outlined by Wright is crucial to understanding McVeigh's role in the plot and many of the little-known stories told by and about McVeigh, both prior to and after the bombing, and related manipulation and destruction of evidence afterward. Other ongoing developments in the case occurring shortly before and at the time of Wright's writing, including a History Channel special in late 2004 detailing contradictory evidence and lingering mysteries surrounding the bombing, and the 2005 publication of After Oklahoma City, a book by Oklahoma City dissident Kathy Wilburn Sanders, whose two young grandsons died in the bombing. She outlined the personal impact of the bombing and its cover-up on grieving families and their process of uncovering evidence in the early stages of the investigation. Yeah, I mean, you would have to imagine that most of the families of the people who died in the bombing would be not terribly interested in the cover-up working out, right?
Oklahoma City dissident Kathy Wilburn Sanders.
Yeah,
that's such a beautiful turn of phrase.
Oklahoma City dissident.
Yeah, sounds like the name of a minor league baseball team.
The Oklahoma City Dissidents. Yeah, it does. It does. Perhaps the most significant development at the time was a largely ignored 2006 congressional investigation led by Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, Republican from California.
Nothing good ever came out of there.
That looked at lingering questions about serious but circumstantial evidence pertaining to the involvement of other conspirators in the bombing. While the investigation did not look into any question that had not already been raised previously, embedded informants, prior warnings, McVeigh's relationship to various groups and individuals, etc., it did so with the authority of the government. The committee's final report detailed a number of roadblocks faced by investigators, including ex-FBI special agent and former governor of Oklahoma, Frank Keating's strange request that the investigation be called off shortly after it began. I has a congressional inquiry ever done anything?
I was gonna say, oh, that's literally my commentary here. This is what your government does all day. Yeah, this is it. You know, they squabble in committee about dumbass shit. No, they've never done anything good. Anything like something. Well, you know, a bill has to go into committee before it comes. So yeah, again, they've never done anything good. But oh man,
but these are congressional investigations, and like,
yeah.
there's never a consequence for people, you know, and you could just look at any number of instances from the last, I don't know, 5 years of people like Anthony Fauci, for example, lying directly to senators in the case of the Rand Paul inquiries, but and facing no consequences. And these congressional investigations are just completely, you know, like they don't ever end up doing anything with.
They're like a bloated relic of the government. Like there was a time, like, and I mean, to go find a time whenever they were actually somewhat useful. This is when you have to go back at like congressional censures, also, like, you know, or they'll pass like statements. These things used to mean things a long time ago,
right?
But like the sprawl of the government has got this. Like they only really work in a situation where it's both feasible and possible for members of the federal government to both be able to and then discover all of the relevant information. Like,
yeah. If the legislature was a little bit savvier, they would realize that you know, the existence of the federal bureaucracy has done quite a lot to tamp down their actual power.
Right. Yeah. That's I've been on that. I've been on that all year. I'm like, there's Stephen Miller is aggressively taking advantage of that right now. And it's sort of interesting to watch because they also don't seem to have figured it out yet.
Yep. Another roadblock the committee documented was the FBI's refusal to cooperate and Department of Justice's refusal to disclose, among other things, the whereabouts of one ARA bank robber who, at best, was thought to possess critical information about the bombing and its perpetrators, and at worst was a possible suspect himself. About these and other instances of the FBI's needless defensive obfuscations, the report noted federal law enforcement has been accused of an institutional mindset. The congressional oversight is a nuisance to be avoided or blocked. Excuse me. That mindset was painfully obvious during the subcommittee's inquiry into the Oklahoma City bombing. Woodpit, you can clip that. You can clip that sneeze as well. Put that in the supercut. I'll listen to it. Former Oklahoma State Representative Charles Key, who spearheaded the impaneling of the similarly railroaded state grand jury convened in 1997, recounted, "The Rohrabacher investigators came to Oklahoma City, and we met with them, discussing the bombing and what we thought was the most important piece of evidence they could obtain, the surveillance tapes that were in the Murrah Federal Building and in the downtown area. I told them they should demand to the FBI that the tapes be released and reviewed. They said they did not have the ability to do that. They tried and were unsuccessful. During the criminal trials, the Justice Department had said they couldn't do this or couldn't do that simply because of the ongoing trial or investigation. But the Justice Department continued to deny this material to the congressional investigators even after the trial had concluded. They continued to use the exact same excuses to prevent obtaining information that's been sought for such a long time." Oh, Faux Iconoclast with a big super chat, 1999. First time catching you all live. Thanks for the reading. Thank you very much, Faux Iconoclast.
You're a real iconoclast now.
We're tearing all the icons down. Are you follow up with that? You don't have to super chat it, but let us know. Do you watch us on YouTube or do you listen to us on Spotify? What's your platform? So, and thank you again. According to the 2006 Rohrabacher Committee report, in June 1995, 2 months into the Oklahoma City bombing investigation, the FBI, much to the frustration of some of its own investigators, discarded the possibility of the existence of John Doe 2. And despite evidence to the contrary, authorities still contend McVeigh was alone the morning of the bombing. It then expressed the opinion of the committee that the FBI was not justified in calling off any further investigation into John Doe 2, but had done so nevertheless. Further, the FBI failed to conduct an adequate investigation of the many credible links between McVeigh and others, links that may have led to the discovery of his other conspirators, and seemingly ignored crucial evidence about the origins and ultimate location of some of the explosives possessed by McVeigh and Nichols. The report concluded by expressing the committee's belief that authorities erred in allowing Timothy McVeigh to move forward the time of his execution, while major questions remained about whether others were involved in the crime. The McVeigh execution should have been further delayed until there was greater consensus on the subject of John Doe 2, noting that the average condemned inmate spends well over a decade on death row, and McVeigh spent only 4 years. The report opines that perhaps McVeigh would have continued to adamantly deny anyone else's involvement, but simply keeping him alive closer to the typical death row stay would have allowed more opportunity for determining the truth. A convenient circumstance for some, disconcerting for others.
Yeah. It is strange that they did it in only 4 years. That is not very long to be on death row.
I mean, it's, you know,
there's people who've been there for 50 years. You know?
I mean, I kind of wonder why. Yeah. I mean, I kind of wonder why we don't just, off them a little faster, but 4 years seems fine, or ultimately, yeah, it does. Ultimately it seems fine, but it's weird that was only a reasonable timeline in this case. Right. So, let's see. In 2007, the BBC aired their own special about the bombing conspiracy, noting the many questions about it that remained. The show featured former FBI agent Danny Coulson, involved in the initial OKC bombing investigation. Coulson said that he was told by his superiors not to investigate the links between McVeigh and Elohim City, and felt that the only way to resolve the lingering mysteries in the case was to convene a federal grand jury investigation. FBI agent John Hersley, lead agent in charge of the OKC investigation and author of Simple Truths, disagreed and said that the FBI did such a thorough investigation that they actually over-investigated parts of the case. Look at us over-investigating. We've determined too much about this. We know too many truths. We've discovered Dread Cthulhu. Like you discover the only time you can over-investigate is when you uncover Lovecraftian knowledge, right? Like there's some eldritch horror behind the OKC bombing, as in, it's just, yeah, it's bullshit.
Well, there is.
Oh, well, okay. Well, yes, it's, yeah. Despite some of their criticisms of Stephen Jones, a number of former members of the Jones team came to similar conclusions about the case. The most recent to voice them being Jones team investigator and award-winning journalist and producer Roger Charles in his 2012 book, Oklahoma City, What the Investigation Missed and Why It Still Matters, the latest full-length investigatory text. The book, co-written by Andrew Gumbel, Huffington Post and The Guardian, details some of the results of Roger Charles' 20-year research and investigation, and provides a comprehensive source of well-documented information and contributes significant details about the inner workings of the FBI's investigation, or lack thereof, while managing to avoid making speculative claims. A glowing review in this book in the Wall Street Journal says Charles's extraordinary, well-researched book demonstrates how, in their zeal to obtain convictions against McVeigh and Nichols and avoid confusing jurors, the FBI's investigation of the bombing was badly flawed and missed or disregarded evidence of a larger conspiracy, thereby raising the question, how far did the conspiracy go? So Roger Charles and Gumbel and this particular book are the subject of a rather long thread that Wendy Painting recently wrote regarding the sort of really the interpersonal conflicts of people who are in the Oklahoma City bombing investigation scene. I guess you could call it a scene. And it's kind of interesting. That's where she discloses that she has this mountain of information that was provided to her by one of these people. And she shares letters that were written between her and Roger Charles. It's again very interesting. Supplementary reading.
Were they doing just like absolutely white trash shit to each other?
No. It was about basically the the work of investigating OKC.
Yeah.
Essentially, their various theories. They don't necessarily agree with each other. So,
right.
Gabe, you could call it a fandom.
Oh my god!
Hopefully not a Oklahoma City bombing fandom. I mean, there's I don't know. There's probably merch. We should make merch. We should make merch for it.
Oh my god! You should make a poll to make Oklahoma City bombing merch.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like the T-shirt that McVeigh was arrested in. The Sic Semper Tyrannis one. We'll get that. Yes. We'll get that on the store. Pureobject.com. Go for it. Let's see.
MS Patchula, me to my wife searching through my likes tab. You're over investigating. MS Patchula spent way too much time investigating Honor Levy's feet.
Oh God. You've been posting an awful lot recently.
I know. I don't.
You're a real foot aficionado. A bit of a planter fascist. Anyway, for a moment, between the publication of Wright's book in 2007 and Charles' book in 2012, it almost seemed as if the most widely popular narrative in publicly accepted history of the bombing had changed forever. In March 2011, nearly a year after the airing of MSNBC's The McVeigh Tapes, entertainment outlets mounted the planned filming of OKC to be produced by Oscar-winning filmmaker Barry Levinson, Rain Man, Good Morning Vietnam, Wag the Dog. The upcoming movie was described as Hollywood's fictionalized, but based on true events, take on the Oklahoma City bombing conspiracy. Announcements of the upcoming production noted that the script for the political thriller, written by Clay Wold, was based on the experiences of his brother, Chad, a Jones team legal clerk who spent months of his life attempting to investigate evidence that others were involved in the terrorist act, often at risk of his own career and safety. OKC is the story of the intrepid Jones team clerk's determination to expose the truth, an effort that ultimately led him to a bigger conspiracy and nearly destroyed the young man. The film promised to expose the real circumstances surrounding the 1995 bombing. Not everyone was happy about the type of clarifications made by Ham, Wright, John Solomon, the Rohrabacher Committee, or Roger Charles, nor were they enthusiastic about fictionalized depictions along these lines. See, now they're okay with the docudrama produced by Rachel Maddow. They're okay with that one. That one goes.
Well, that one's been vetted.
Not a problem.
That one's been vetted.
But they're not okay. See, like, why do they guard, right? Like, why are they guarding the production of that so tightly? And it's because fiction feeds culture, and it feeds the understanding of real world events directly, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm about it.
People would see that. People would see whatever was in OKC. Let's assume that Wendy's characterization of it is accurate to what would have been released, and it would have there would have been multiple other people, a shadowy second or third figure. People would have read into that it was essentially true, right?
The lone wolf meme is just too valuable to ever let it be punctured,
Yeah, exactly. It's nothing more to see here.
Sometimes which I anticipate is the point Wendy is making in this whole chapter.
Of course. Nothing more to see here. You can just do things. If you really could just do things like that, there'd be a lot more things occurring. Yeah.
We're fresh out of things over here. I'm not sure if you can just do them.
Things. Yeah. Nor were they enthusiastic about fictionalized depictions along these lines. An anonymous editorial expressed the hope that Levinson's movie would stick to the facts and be accurate and devoid of embellishment, rather than a movie that only muddles history and dishonors bombing victims, a sentiment not expressed about the observably embellished and aggressively deceptive MSNBC bombing anniversary special. Similar sounding write-ups appeared, all offering an abbreviated lone wolf accounting of reality. The film was never made. And like John Doe 2's and Murrah surveillance tapes, it quickly disappeared down the memory hole. Memory is fleeting. Just before McVeigh's criminal trial began, a scandal erupted concerning the corrupt and compromised practices of the FBI crime lab that had manipulated its findings to bolster convictions. The scandal was quickly forgotten because, after all, this was the work of isolated people and corrective measures had been enacted, or so the public was led to believe. History repeated itself in April 2015, when the FBI made a startling admission that for over 20 years, its forensic experts gave flawed testimony at criminal trials, some ending in the death penalty.
And they knew. Yeah, we knew that. We just didn't do anything about it.
Yep.
It was like...
The mistakes, purportedly unintentional, were always in favor of the prosecution. Funny how that works. Nothing like a fire. Yeah. Innocent people had been convicted. Some had been put to death. The revelations were a colossal disaster, a sinkhole, a systemic failure. Interestingly, the CNN segment that reported these revelations on April 19, 2015, transitioned into a piece about the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing, never once mentioning the earlier crime lab scandal or the questions that still surround the physical evidence in that case. Viewers were informed that back in 1995, law enforcement really had to scramble to figure out what had happened, but luckily these days, people who pose potential threats on the scale of McVeigh are under a much stronger microscope. An assertion that ironically implies that the new McVeighs will be detected and stopped before they have a chance to strike.
Wow. We had a whole chapter about that.
Yep. Someone should start making AI animated versions of these dissident stories.
See, that was what I said. But of course, I immediately went to a more demented place and said we should start faking Kennedy shooting videos. But
yes, exactly. Yeah, we should definitely we should AI embellish the Zapruder film and show a shooter from a different angle. Like just show it from another. It'll be fine. You just make the driver turn and shoot Kennedy. Right?
You know, it would be wild. Make Timothy McVeigh black and see how long it takes you to get shut down.
Oh my God. McVeigh was black. You may have evidence to the contrary. You may disagree, but think about it.
It's based on a true story.
It's based on a true story. Timothy McVeigh was black. Once again. One man who knows all about the types of treacherous institutional and public memory holes outlined above and throughout this book is Salt Lake City attorney Jesse Trentadue. For 20 years, Jesse Trentadue, by the way, sounds like a guy from Baton Rouge. Does not sound like a guy from Salt Lake City.
I'm curious why you picked on Baton Rouge there.
What?
Why are we picking on Baton Rouge?
I don't think I'm picking on Baton Rouge. I'm
choosing Baton Rouge. It's a strange place. You know, I lived in Baton Rouge for a long time.
I didn't know you lived in Baton Rouge. I obviously you constantly talk about Louisiana, so I knew you were from there. But no, it does. It sounds like this is Jesse Trentadue. You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I was just curious. I was like, how much have I said?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sandbatch's docs were incorrect. His real name is Jesse Trentadue.
Funny enough, my docs does say that I'm from Baton Rouge, and I'm not. It's like I got docs. They got almost nothing right about my docs except my name, which is the only thing.
For 20 years and counting, he has walked through fire to retrieve some of the critical information that has fallen into those holes and continues to act as a force of reckoning for memory hole diggers. Memory hole diggers could be here. Although to do so, he has gone down a road even the most determined and brave of truth seekers dare not tread. He is, as one news article noted, no liberal crusader, nor is he an anti-government conspiracy theorist. However, as fate would have it, in his quest to learn why his brother was murdered, Jesse Trentadue uncovered and continues to uncover the most explosive and aggressively suppressed information withheld from the public about the bombing to date, ensuring that questions about the bombing remain in public view. And I'm not sure if I'm actually not sure if Trentadue is still alive right now. Maybe you could Jamie that up for me, Sandbatch.
How do you spell it?
It's on the page in front of you. Let's see. The horrible story began when on June 10th, 1995, Jesse's brother, Kenneth Michael Trentadue, 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 a 44-year-old Vietnam veteran, was driving home to his new wife and child in San Diego, California. Kenneth was pulled over during a routine traffic stop near the California-Mexico border, near where he'd been working a construction job. Wanted on a parole violation that occurred 6 years earlier, he was taken into custody and incarcerated in a San Diego jail until August 18th, when he was inexplicably transferred to a federal transfer center in Oklahoma City to be held there temporarily until his parole violation hearing.
By the way, I found the answer to the question.
He was in jail. Hold on. He was held there on a parole violation for 14 months before he received a transfer allegedly to like go to trial. That is crazy. Anyway, sorry. What's the answer? Well,
I just read the next paragraph.
Okay. All right. Well, I know Kenneth is dead, but not I'm asking about his brother Jesse.
Oh,
investigating his brother's death.
Jesse Trent. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's gonna be more difficult because I mean this guy almost certainly disappeared off the map. We're gonna ask.
He's actively researching. He's actively researching if he's alive. Just FYI. The next day, he called his family and let them know where he was. According to his family, Kenneth wasn't upset, knowing that he'd most likely be released immediately after the hearing, or at worst, would serve no more than another 2 months. If anything, he sounded upbeat and hopeful. He was looking forward to the future. As a young man returning home from the Vietnam War, he'd gotten into his share of trouble, but since 1988 had pieced his life back together. He'd recently gotten married and had just become a proud father of a baby boy. Kenneth and his family spoke briefly, and he promised to call back the next day. But this call never came. Early on the morning of August 21st, the acting FTC warden called the Trentadue family to inform them that Kenneth had hung himself in his cell the night before. The warden then urged them to have Kenneth cremated, made an unprecedented offer to have the prison incur the expense of the cremation. Family insisted Kenneth's body be returned to them unmolested, and eventually, 1 week later, after several heated and bizarre phone calls, the prison complied. Upon seeing his body, the family realized why prison officials had been so insistent on a cremation, despite their protests. Kenneth's corpse was so heavily caked with makeup that at first, the wounds underneath were barely visible. When his wife and mother cleared off the makeup, it became evident that Kenneth had been brutally tortured and murdered. He was covered from head to toe with bruises, lacerations, and obvious fingerprint impressions. His skull was smashed in 3 places, and perhaps most damning, his throat was slashed.
What?
Yeah.
It's hanging yourself in your prison cell. By the way, Jesse is alive. Yeah, he's alive.
Jesse's alive and working. Great.
Yeah.
Love to hear it. Hope he blows the lid off it. Cash Patel should hire him to review the FBI's documents. Immediately. Send tweet, something like that. On August 30th, 1995, when services for his brother concluded, Jesse wrote a heartbreaking letter of complaint to the Bureau of Prisons and enclosed photographs of Kenneth's body. Any reasonable person could see that this was no suicide, Jesse wrote, and after outlining various possibilities about how such injuries could have occurred, expressed his opinion that the prison was in some way responsible. 2 days later, the Board of Prisons issued a press release claiming that Kenneth's injuries were self-inflicted and over time concocted an amazing story about how Kenneth had tried to hang himself but fell. Since that didn't work, he attempted to slit his throat with a tube of toothpaste before making a second. But
what?
And before making a second, and this time successful attempt to hang himself.
It sounds like a Bob Dylan song.
How did he
slit his throat with a tube of toothpaste?
It is throat with a tube of toothpaste. Yeah, exactly. And like, well, but also, how did he beat the shit out of himself and smash his head? Like,
yeah.
Oh, that was the fall. Okay, all right. Okay. What the press release failed to mention was that over the Board of Prisons' objections, a medical examiner had performed an autopsy as required by state law. The day after Kenneth died, Kevin Rowland, a chief investigator for the medical examiner's office, filed a report with the local FBI noting his belief that Kenneth's injuries were inconsistent with a suicide and indicated foul play. Fred Jordan, Oklahoma chief medical examiner, listed the cause of death as unknown pending investigation, and despite the Board of Prisons' demands, refused to classify it as a suicide. In the days and months to follow, Rowland filed additional reports noting his suspicion that Kenneth had been tortured and murdered, and the fact that prison officials refused to grant investigators access to the cell itself. Rather, they were only allowed to view the cell from outside by peering between the bars, although by that time it didn't matter because the cell had been scrubbed clean in violation of standard procedure in inmate deaths, suspicious or otherwise. It's wild that the medical examiners are doing their job, like that this torture and murder in government custody is being so ineptly covered up. Right.
I'm just like thinking this. I mean, they just know they got caught so hard, and they're just like, we're just look,
man.
He slipped on a soap.
He fell real hard. He kept like falling and getting up and falling and getting up. It was crazy.
And nobody stopped him. No, nobody stopped him.
No. He was, flailing all over the place with that sharpened tube of toothpaste. You could have gotten cut if you tried to intervene, but no, he just kept falling down over and over like the Three Stooges. And then he died. Because the medical examiner's office had officially noted their concerns through the proper channels, the Board of Prisons was required by law to investigate the matter, although anticipating a lawsuit, filed their documentation of the supposed investigation in such a way as to be shielded from public discovery through FOIA or court actions. In the following months and years, Jesse attempted to use every legal means available to discover the facts surrounding his brother's death, a task that proved exceedingly difficult due in part to the Board of Prisons' destruction of a great deal of evidence, including, among other things, crime scene photos, prison logbooks, and Kenneth's blood-stained clothing.
A truly sharkish Jewish lawyer would have strung the prison up for having hazardous toothpaste tubes.
No kidding, right? Oh my God! And then he would have he would have started selling them toothpaste, like powdered toothpaste that came in a paper bag or something. Yes. Like you couldn't do anything with.
This is me on Adderall, by the way. I come up with incredible ideas.
That's a great idea. Actually, you know what? You could have the little packets that they give you, like the super fine powdered iodized salt in at fast food restaurants. You could have those and just have like powdered toothpaste in it, and you mix it up on the brush.
Yeah,
and you that's what you could do. You could do that.
They have floppy brushes because they stab each other with them.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Floppy brushes, floppy toothbrushes. No, why don't they have those little dog brushes? The ones you have for dogs where it's like it's like a thimble It's like a super. It's like
Put
a
it over your
flexible
finger.
thimble. You put it over your finger, and the bristles are on like two sides.
No, there's
They should do
different.
that.
Yeah.
They should do that. It actually kind of looks like a French tickler. You ever seen one of those?
French tickler.
Because the medical examiners, a great detail of evidence, including, among other things, crime scene photos, prison logbooks, and Kenneth's bloodstained clothing. And then there was the issue of the videotapes of Kenneth's cell the morning he was found, the content of which were erased. So, I mean, I feel like when the government does something like this, it should just be assumed that they're guilty, right? Like the presumption should not be of innocence.
Like in most cases, we would presume innocence, but we also assume that like this is such a highly controlled environment that any fuck ups are on you, and especially any fuck ups that produce such a comical fucking story.
Yeah, it's like, normally we'd cover for you, but this is just bad work. Like, this is just bad workmanship. So, eventually, over the objections of medical examiner chief investigator Kevin Rowland, Oklahoma City District Attorney Bob Macy issued a final ruling that Kenneth had committed suicide. Macy, you will remember, was the lead prosecutor in the Oklahoma City bombing case, and after unsuccessfully attempting to prevent the formation of the state grand jury investigation of the bombing, was appointed to oversee and control it. The significance of this, however, would not become apparent for another 6 years. In 1996, due to the negative attention of media outlets and support of sympathetic legislators that the case was receiving, the DOJ's Civil Rights Division assumed responsibility for the investigation and recommended evidence be presented to a federal grand jury, which would decide whether or not to issue any indictments. Meanwhile, the local FBI office set about to discredit the reputation of Fred Jordan, who had conducted Kenneth's autopsy and had refused to rule the death a suicide. Even a forensic pathologist hired by the DOJ to give a second opinion had also reached the same conclusion as Jordan. Wild that guy, wild that both of these medical examiners are not playing ball, right? Like, isn't that unbelievable?
That's like next thing you're going to tell me that criminal psychology professors at multiple Bay Area universities don't know each other.
Right. The grand jury heard only evidence cherry-picked by the government and declined to issue any criminal indictments. It took 2 months for the DOJ to inform the family or the public of this, because as inflammatory internal reports, emails, and handwritten DOJ notes later revealed, they were busy devising a rollout plan about how they would handle fallout from the lack of indictments, including the very real possibility of a congressional or Senate investigation. "We ain't looking for press on this," said one email. DOJ officials compared the damage control effort to coordinating the invasion of Normandy, involving a long list of Trenta-dos and Trenta-don'ts. God damn it. Leading and controlling the effort was future Attorney General Eric Holder, who at the time was Deputy Acting Attorney General, second only in command to Janet Reno. Reno herself, as you've never seen her before. Covered in sequins and not much else.
The queen of my dreams. God, that would take so many sequins. I bet she had huge feet.
Nowadays, God, why are we talking about Janet Reno's feet? Nowadays, if Janet Reno was hired, everyone would think that she was a troon.
Yes.
She's just a really homely woman. Really homely woman. Ugliest. As ugly on the inside. She's actually like a Roald Dahl villain, because she's ugly on the outside because she's ugly on the inside. Right? Physiognomy don't lie. Janet Reno, hideous. Most hideous woman to ever work in the executive branch.
Washington Examiner from Matt Labash, March 25th, 2002. Janet Reno is a lot of woman. She's 6'1" she's 6'1" barefoot, 6'1" 3/4" in her sensible flats.
Why'd they measure her barefoot? Oh no. Janet Reno foot pics do exist, which is that's what that means. Yeah.
What do you think I'm Googling?
Oh my God. I can hear every key press of your goddamn mechanical keyboard. Holder's plan, dubbed by him and his DOJ team the Trentadue mission, apparently included sending FBI agents to harass any person with influence who might affect an outcome other than the one the DOJ desired. Oklahoma Assistant Attorney General Patrick Crawley informed a DOJ attorney that in what he described as an Alice through the looking glass situation, the Board of Prisons and FBI had obfuscated the truth of Kenneth's death. The agencies had prevented the medical examiner from conducting a thorough and complete investigation into the death, destroyed evidence, and otherwise harassed and harangued Dr. Jordan and his staff. The absurdity of this situation is that your clients, DOJ officials, outwardly represent law enforcement, or at least some arm of licit government. It appears that your clients, and perhaps others within the Department of Justice, have been abusing the powers of their respective offices. If this is true, all Americans should be very frightened of the DOJ.
I am.
Eric Holder. Later rewarded. Yeah. So the calculated and malicious pressure placed on Jordan finally became too much for him, and in July 1998, he complied and changed Kenneth's official cause of death to suicide, although in private he continued to maintain otherwise. In the meantime, just as the Board of Prison had feared, the Trentadue family filed a wrongful death lawsuit through which additionally damaging information surfaced despite the government's efforts to destroy relevant evidence in the case that would reveal the identities of Kenneth's murderers, including blood samples from inside the cell that belonged to individuals other than Kenneth Trentadue. Then how fucking bad at torture do you need to be injured?
Oops, cut myself.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, hold on. Owen Zaleski, second only to Hillary Clinton, I'm sure in response to me saying Janet Reno, ugliest woman ever to be in the executive branch. Hillary Clinton is just old. There are pictures of her when she was younger. She was not ugly. Like she's not hot, but she was like a Sandbatch hot, which is like a solid 5.5.
Oh my God.
Right?
Do you know who was in Arkansas posting pictures from like some hippie commune?
Bill Clinton.
Ella Emhoff. Oh yes.
Ella Emhoff.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Woodpit. Hillary is Miss American compared to El Reno. All right, look, there is an episode of Saturday Night Live from the 90s that where Will Ferrell plays Janet Reno, and
Yes.
Janet Reno walks onto the stage, and it is very difficult to tell them apart.
Damn.
It is, and if anything, Will Ferrell is the hotter one. So it's Janet Reno is catastrophically ugly. So yeah. Anyhow, Nancy Kennedy is still the hottest first lady, Gabe. Once again, proving that you're a European. Yes. Jackie O is easily the hottest first lady ever. I mean, complete smoke show.
Ooh, gotta think about that.
What, are you shitting me? You're gonna be like, oh, I don't know, Mary Todd Lincoln. You know, like,
oh, I would do such terrible things to her for a whole different set of
terrible things
reasons.
to Mary Todd Lincoln.
But
yeah, Jackie O is definitely more attractive than Melania.
Yeah, I know it's got to be Jackie. It's her.
Yeah. Let's see. Although, you know what? Pictures of a young Lady Bird Johnson, she could get it.
Wait, Gabe Nancy Kennedy is still. Oh, okay. I thought he said Nancy Reagan there for a minute, and I think that's what.
No. He meant Jackie Kennedy, and he corrected himself in a subsequent post.
He's just totally out of his mind.
I actually, you know what? I don't know what Nancy Reagan looked like when she was young. It's possible that because Ronnie Reagan was as friend of the show Gio Panichetti likes to say, Ronnie Reagan Yeah, Woodpit is standing Nancy Reagan. Yeah, Nancy wasn't bad looking. Nancy was good looking. In fact, he increases his. I'm sure that he Googled that. He Googled her and modified his assessment. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you know, Ronnie Reagan was a handsome man in his youth, and yeah, so I'm sure that sure that Nancy was not. Yeah, I'm sure Nancy Reagan was not a bad looker. Yeah. So. Oh, whoa, here we go. Yeah, Woodpit. She met Ronald Reagan when he was the head of the Actors Union. So yeah, no way she was ugly. He would have had his pick, right? Especially since that was probably like the fucking 60s. So
she was a smoke show.
She was really hot.
Yeah.
Hotter than Jackie Kennedy?
Yeah. She was
well, I'm asking.
She was like,
I'm not asking Sandbatch. I'll Google this later. I'll Google this later.
She was Betty Davis Hyde. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, Nancy's still looking for the other half of my brain. All right. Where was I? Oh yeah. Including blood samples from inside the cell that belonged to individuals other than Kenneth Trentadue. Then there were eyewitnesses, including a prison guard who told his neighbor that Kenneth was hung after he died in order to cover up the fact that he had been killed. In 1999, Alden Gillis Baker, a inmate in an adjacent cell, came forward to say he witnessed the murder and was willing to testify at the civil suit. He never got the chance because soon after Baker told his lawyer that he feared for his life, he too was found dead, hanging in his cell. Although Baker's death was ruled a suicide, he was not the last helpful witness to turn up dead. Poor guy.
Amazing.
Actually, you know, kind of the stones on this fucking guy, right? Actually, like, to be testifying against the Board of Prisons when you're in prison.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that in Texas or Louisiana. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. Fucking Arizona, man. Wouldn't do it in Arizona either.
Yeah.
All right. In a strange and cruel maneuver, the DOJ requested that the U.S. District Judge Tim Leonard, who presided over the civil suit, legally muzzle the Trentadue family. Wow. Specifically, the DOJ requested that the judge issue an order barring the Trentadue family from discussing with the media or any branch of law enforcement, including the DOJ itself, any evidence revealed through discovery or presented at the trial that might implicate federal employees in criminal acts, including perjury or obstruction of justice. In August 1998, Judge Leonard complied with the DOJ request, explaining that he did not want the suit to become a pipeline of information to non-parties over whom the court has no supervision. Wow. They're
not doing a great job of things they do have supervision over, you know?
Right, no shit. Yeah, well, they're doing a great job. They're all dying as intended. While the civil suit was still being litigated and the Trentadue family gagged, the DOJ's Office of Inspector General conducted another brief investigation, but sealed their November 1999 report. However, they did release a summary of the report, relaying their finding that the employees of the FBI had mishandled evidence and lied to their superiors, to the Office of Inspector General, and to the courts about their actions during their initial investigation to Kenneth's death. In 2001, the Trentadue family was awarded $1.1 million for emotional distress, not for the Board of Prisons' role in Kenneth's death, but from their deceptive and otherwise shameful conduct afterwards. Money wasn't what Jesse Trentadue was after. He simply wanted answers about his brother's death, and now the reason the Board of Prisons, FBI, and DOJ would go to such great lengths and spend millions of dollars to prevent him or the public from obtaining these answers. It was at this time that Timothy McVeigh contacted Jesse Trentadue and told him the FBI killed his brother during an interrogation gone awry. The FBI advised McVeigh had mistaken Kenneth for Aryan Republican Army bank robber Richard Guthrie, whose whereabouts in August 1995 were unknown, but whom the FBI suspected had information about, if not direct involvement in, the Oklahoma City bombing. When he saw pictures of Guthrie, Jesse was struck by how closely he resembled Kenneth. Even stranger, after his arrest for the bank robberies in 1996, Guthrie, like Kenneth and Baker before him, was found hanging in his prison cell. After threatening to tell the media everything he knew about the bombing, which Guthrie indicated was quite a bit, many speculated that had he lived, Guthrie would have revealed McVeigh's links to specific members of the Aryan Republican Army bank robbery gang, including Guthrie himself, some of the residents at Elohim City, the identities of federal informants, and the participation of all three groups in the bombing plot. Again, how fucking wild would it be to get a letter from Timothy McVeigh?
No, I'm like, what was the walkout music? Like, did the Law and Order sound play whenever he looked at the envelope? Like,
Dun, dun.
Yeah.
No, it's more like the CSI Miami, where it was like, yeah, like that thing. Anyway, thus Jesse set out to learn what he could about the bank robbers, his search for justice and truth for his brother, becoming forever after inexorably intertwined with the Oklahoma City bombing conspiracy. As Jesse himself explained, he didn't start out trying to solve the Oklahoma City bombing, but as it happened, every lead I came across took me back to the bombing in Oklahoma City in April of 1995, including the message I received from Tim McVeigh, I will add, unsolicited, shortly before he was executed. He quickly encountered the very institutional secrecy and denials that long plagued both his brother and the Oklahoma City bombing case. Nevertheless, where others, including the Oklahoma dissidents and the Jones team, had failed to obtain information about a larger conspiracy, Jesse succeeded, but only because, in the words of journalist Andrew Gumbel, ever since the death of his brother, Jesse Trentadue had been all over the federal government like a bad case of lice.
Now he sounds like he's from Baton Rouge.
Been all over the federal government like
a bad case of rice. Bad case of rice. Lice.
I said. Lice. Yeah. Man. Itchier than the Dickens. Scabies. Don't want that.
Cap doing Southern dialects is my favorite element that I've introduced into the show.
Oh, well, you didn't necessarily introduce it because
you've been doing this for a while.
We weren't doing that one. We were doing the country fried lawyer. For Stephen Jones for a while. Back when Hudson and I were on it.
He was crazy as your mama.
No, not like that. More like
that's a New Orleans lawyer. Yeah,
more like, Your Honor, I move myself be disbarred for introducing this evidence against my own client. Like, ooh, it's a hot one today. Yeah. Anyway, Jesse Trentadue's lousy, get it? Information-seeking infestation as it concerns the OKC bombing began in earnest in 2005 when he began filing Freedom of Information Act requests to federal agencies for information about the bank robbers, the FBI's and other federal agencies' investigation of them, and their possible links to McVeigh. For the most part, the FBI responded by denying that any such information existed. The majority of documents they did produce were heavily redacted and virtually unreadable. Even so, the released documents revealed that prior to calling off their search for additional conspirators in the bombing, the FBI had actively investigated links between McVeigh, the ARA, Elohim City, and others with possible connection to the bombing, and the existence of additional informants embedded within the plot beyond those already known about. Significantly, the documents referenced an FBI informant from Arkansas who had infiltrated militia and patriot groups around the country, a probable reference to Roger Moore, who provided explosives to McVeigh. Further, Jesse obtained documentation indicating links between McVeigh and bank robber Guthrie, which lent weight to the tip-off McVeigh gave Jesse in 2001. Yeah, well, but the simple fact that the tip-off even existed, like how would McVeigh know who this random ARA bank robber was, and that he looked
and how did he get his address?
And that he looked like Kenneth Trentadue. Like, how would you just know that, right? Like McVeigh saw the reporting about Kenneth Trentadue in the media, right? Like that's how he got that. But how would he know about the Guthrie about Guthrie at all? Like, he shouldn't know that unless he had some pre-existing connection, right? More like Freedom of Infestation Act, am I right, fellas? Yeah, right. Very, very lousy. Very lousy. Let's see here. Some of the documents produced in response to Jesse's Freedom of Information Act made reference to other related documents, which should have been produced but weren't. His requests for these, as well as other more specific information, were met with similar denials, including one instance where the CIA acknowledged the existence of the sought information, but refused to turn it over for reasons of national security. What an odd thing to say. Every time an agency, most often the FBI, failed to release the requested information or denied its existence, Jesse appealed, all the while continuing to file additional requests for other information. It's like a one-man bury them in paperwork thing, right? In doing so, he continued to uncover ever more damning information and encountered further obfuscations until eventually his appeals set legal precedent by reaching the Supreme Court level. In 2006, Jesse Trentadue, what a real one, right? This is like a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington level thing, except it's like Mr. Smith uncovers the government killed his brother and then covered it up in an insane cock up. Right,
he looks like exactly the kind of person who would do this too. Like, he's like
really just like just a good fella,
serious do-gooder boomer energy.
Wow. Also, great fucking brother, because he's been at this for years now. Right. That's like a decade. It's like a decade. He's just like dogging the government to uncover the truth about his brother dying. Right. That's good ass fucking brother. That's some filial piety right there.
Oh, let's watch word order there.
What?
Let's watch word order there.
Oh yeah. Good ass brother. Good ass brother. not with that intonation either. Some of the documents produced in response to Jesse's FOIA made reference to other. Oh, sorry. Hold on. In 2006, U.S. District Judge Dale Kimball, who presided over Jesse's appeals at this time, opined that he had unearthed significant evidence of foul play in his brother's death and posed some very good questions about the factual history of the bombing. Kimball found it troubling that the FBI had failed to produce so many of the documents referenced in the material they had turned over, and further observed that the material Jesse had obtained indicated that there was an undercover operative in with McVeigh and members of various militia groups who aided and supported McVeigh. Plaintiff wonders why, given the subject matter, there are no earlier records that have been produced by the FBI. When Kimball ordered the FBI to turn over all of the information Jesse sought, they responded by giving him another 150 pages of heavily redacted documents, some of which they had previously claimed did not exist. Jesse responded by arguing that this was only a fraction of what the FBI continued to withhold, and Kimball once more ordered the FBI to look again. After the agency predictably returned with claims that the sought-after documents did not exist, Jesse produced heavily redacted copies of some of them, which had been anonymously leaked to him. Amazing.
Well, you mean these don't exist right here?
I mean, these ones that I have don't exist? Yeah. So you lied to me. Like, there should be specific consequences for lying in a FOIA response. There aren't, there never will be, but there should be. Until this day, a pattern has continued wherein Jesse seeks information. The FBI claims it doesn't exist. Jesse proves it does. Judges ordered the FBI to search harder, and the FBI comes back with even more heavily redacted pages. The majority of the information federal agencies have sought to withhold concerns informants embedded in or in close proximity to the bombing plot, the number of which continued to increase until it became undeniable that something larger than the bombing plot itself had been going on. Jesse's quest and the unthinkable information it resulted in increasingly appeared in national news media. He had forced the discovery of information about the bombing and the machinations and troubling methodologies of the FBI. Although, apparently, unread by Rachel Maddow and the producers of the McVeigh tapes, by 2007, major media outlets began to ask the very same questions about the bombing that so-called conspiracy theorists had been asking for years, and advancing the very theory about Kenneth's death that Timothy McVeigh offered to Jesse years earlier. Funny how that keeps happening, isn't it? Isn't it weird? Isn't it weird how that happens? And something gets called a conspiracy theory, and then after some time and like dismantling the alternative narrative just occurs, that it turns out that what conspiracy theorists were saying was just right all along, the entire time.
The holy trinity of federal obfuscation is 1, lone wolf, 2, conspiracy theory, 3, page 45 redaction in the New York Times. That's it. Those are the 3.
Yep, exactly. Democracy Now! Reported that the information Jesse dug up suggests the FBI knew about the plot to bomb the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building and did little to prevent it. Trentadue was credited with revealing a widespread informant operation that had allowed the FBI and ATF to know well in advance of April 1995 that there was a bombing in place and or in the planning, as well as the identities of those involved, although both agencies did nothing to stop it. Amazing as such acknowledgments may seem, in 2007, Jesse was just warming up. There were still many more questions than there were answers. Hilarious that Democracy Now reported on this, right?
I know.
There's like that. maybe nothing more regime controlled, right? With the blessing and support of the surviving Oklahoma dissidents, bombing survivors, and victim family members, Jesse next requested copies of the 20 or more missing surveillance tapes from the cameras that surrounded the Murrah building on April 19th, 1995, all in different locations and managed by different companies. The tapes, which captured the moments before and after the bombing, could clear up the issue of who was with McVeigh that day. The FBI insisted that they could not locate the tapes, and therefore they did not exist. But unbeknownst to the FBI, Jesse possessed FBI documents proving otherwise, which he presented to the court. In 2009, having denied their existence for 15 years, the FBI released video footage from 4 of the 22 or so cameras in and around the Murrah. Oddly, though, while the cameras, operated by 4 different local businesses using 4 separate systems, contained several uninterrupted hours of footage prior to the explosion, all of them simultaneously malfunctioned at the same time, which just happened to be the moment the Ryder truck pulled up to the front of the Murrah building. The footage resumes minutes after the blast. While some of the released footage came from a camera inside the Murrah, the FBI claimed there was no camera posted on the outside of the building, and insisted there were no more tapes beyond those they suddenly discovered and dutifully provided. How they malfunctioned right before as the truck pulled up. Now you could obviously say, oh, well, they malfunctioned. They malfunctioned because of, the blast, right? Like you could make it malfunction then or something like that. But just because it pulled up, okay, bud. Okay. When Woodpit. Democracy Now! Reported on the story, but it was in the context of indigenous water rights. Very good. Very good. When he appeared in 2010, appealed in 2010, sorry. Jesse submitted irrefutable evidence to the contrary, including the FBI's own reports documenting agents gathering tapes from a great many more cameras than they claimed to exist. In addition, he presented sworn affidavits and photographs proving there were cameras on the outside of the Murrah in position to capture the rider and its occupants. He argued that the FBI was withholding footage from additional cameras and that the miraculously malfunctioning video the FBI had turned over was doctored. The judge bluntly asked the FBI where the footage from the other cameras was, to which the FBI responded that although additional footage capturing the worst attack of terrorism on American soil had once existed, it had since been lost.
Whoops.
In 2011, citing the public importance of the tapes, federal judge Clark Wadoops, whatever that, I don't know where that name comes from.
It was lost in 2011. How did you know when it was lost?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's lost, period. In 2011, comma. There you go. Citing the public importance of the tapes, federal judge Clark Wadoops, I don't know how to pronounce that guy's last name. Waddoups. Okay. Ordered the FBI to conduct another search for the tapes and further to explain why FBI officials had previously made false statements to the court about those tapes. During a trial over the matter in July 2014, Oklahoma City Police Department officer and first responder Don Browning, RIP, testified to what he had stated in his earlier submitted sworn affidavit. Browning, in what the court found to be the most compelling testimony heard at the trial, said that in the immediate aftermath of the bombing, as rescue workers were trying to recover as many survivors as they could, the FBI ordered them to halt the search. When Browning protested that there was a woman trapped inside the building who was still alive, a female FBI agent told him that there were files so critical to the government that there would be no recovery effort until the files were retrieved. As he waited for this to happen, Browning observed a group of FBI agents place a ladder up against the Murrah that they then used to retrieve a surveillance camera on the front of the building, the bracketing, and much of the wiring. Essentially anything to indicate that the camera had ever been there. The FBI denied this and called Jesse's witness a liar. Jesse, however, happened to have two photographs that had appeared in news articles shortly after the bombing. One showed a camera on the building and the other a ladder against the building, but no camera.
Damn.
Wow. Penultimo, they didn't even try to make a good excuse. Yeah, it's just fucking like it. How
the theme of this chapter is the FBI not even trying.
Right. Yeah, at least have the respect for the public to have a good cover up, have a good one, right? A colorful back and forth exchange ensued between Jesse, the FBI's witness, and the judge. Wadoops eventually opined that the evidence and testimony presented by Jesse supports an inference that these cameras were removed from the Murrah building that morning, April 19, 1995, to conceal the fact that there was a security system in place that may have recorded the perpetrators, and that the FBI failed to prove that the cameras didn't exist. The photograph establishes beyond a reasonable doubt that the cameras did exist, right? Obviously, because it's a photo of a camera in that position, right?
It's like reminds me of the Trump shooting, where it's like there's like people wandering around like telling the FBI, it's like there's a guy climbing this building with a gun, and they're like, nah, it's not. They're just not even paying attention.
Don't even worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Authorized. Yeah. Disinformation. Competency crisis, man. You can't even assassinate a presidential candidate anymore, right? Let's see, security system, and that the FBI failed to prove that the cameras didn't exist. The finding implies that the agency's pattern of lying to the court was an ongoing issue. Their continued insistence that nobody was with McVeigh and the rider in Oklahoma City on April 19th, 1995 was becoming increasingly tenuous and raised a number of questions. Even if the many eyewitnesses were unreliable, as the government argued, how could the FBI or anybody else for that matter know one way or another if, in fact, the tapes didn't exist or, excuse me, sneeze too. That's 3. There we go. All right. Comes in 3s. Or were lost. Along with the tenacity of their claims, the motives behind losing, hiding, or destroying the tapes also appeared increasingly sketchy.
Overwhelming FBI-ness.
Yeah, you're really like, again, this is like the type of thing where someone has, or where they've lied repeatedly, been caught lying, then been forced to trickle out a little more information. Like, at what point does someone like get punished for this, right? Like, does that point exist? And apparently
It's not explicitly clear what the mechanism for punishing them would be.
It's not clear what that mechanism would be. Like, there should be an actual punishment that is legally mandated, and it's not like it's the individual rather than the. Yeah, well, and the other problem is that, okay, well, yeah, who do you give that to? Do you give that to the judiciary? Because as we currently know, the judiciary is just going to kind of like do what it wants. So
just kind of wiggle around in there.
Fuck you, I do what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And probably we just need a philosopher king to rule it for eternity. The reasons prompting the FBI's stubborn obfuscations became all the more suspicious when, in 2007, J.M. Berger, a writer for Foreign Policy and Intel Wire, filed FOIA requests seeking information about federal surveillance of a Texas militia, and the FBI responded with several redacted documents, some of which contained reference to PatCon. Hoping to find out more, Berger and Jesse Trentadue requested more information through FOIA, the results of which, while highly redacted, revealed the FBI led a multi-agency national sting/provocateur network called PatCon. That, as we now know...
Wait, is Jesse Trentadue the guy that broke PatCon?
Well, Berger, technically, but that, as we now know, somehow kept crossing paths with McVeigh and correlated to information about FBI's informant network that Jesse had already discovered. The PatCon developments ultimately allowed Jesse to forge further precedent-setting investigative paths, and in the process, fill in some major gaps in the known history of the Oklahoma City bombing. Jesse recalled how, in 2011, as he continued appeals in the surveillance tape case and pieced together the specifics of PatCon, he received a call from a man named John Matthews, who told Jesse that while Jesse, had all the pieces, he didn't see the big picture. Matthews told Jesse, this is some deep throat shit, right? Matthews told Jesse that, obviously they framed Nixon, but Matthews told Jesse that he had been a deep cover PatCon informant and offered the name of his former handler, FBI Special Agent Don Jarrett, stationed in the Phoenix, Arizona office. Matthews, a Vietnam veteran, was dying from Agent Orange-related cancer. Jesse's story had moved him so much that he wanted to relieve himself of some PatCon secrets he harbored before he died, and in July 2011 traveled across the country to meet with Jesse. Matthews explained that the majority of undercover PatCon informants faced criminal charges and became involved in exchange for reduction or dropping of those charges. Matthews, however, said he chose to go undercover out of concern over the danger posed by extremist right-wing groups. He believed that he could serve his country by informing on them, and thus went undercover for PatCon in 1992. Eventually, though, after successfully infiltrating 23 groups, Matthews realized that although he was initially told the objective was to infiltrate and monitor, he came to understand that actually the objective was to infiltrate and incite. Matthews outlined a number of instances in which PatCon operatives had provided the ideas, detailed instructions, and even live C4 explosives and automatic weapons to targeted individuals as a way of entrapping them into terrorist plots, so the FBI could capitalize on foiled and actualized plots. How do you feel about that one, Sandbatch? You ever get the offer?
No, that's actually what I was sitting here thinking. Like, I could have been so damn good at this.
So good.
Yeah, I knew Gabe was going to hop on the Philosopher King comment so hard, and he did. He says that Philosopher King's name, Baron, but I was going to suggest that Gabe himself is actually the Philosopher King.
Gabe, you're the one. You're the anchorite they'll call from the wilds to lead.
He's the only man. He's the only man who thought of someone else first.
Right. Oh my God. I know there's a modern department at PatCon that specialized in creating black threads on 4chan.
No way.
No, from Penultimo. From Penultimo. Thank you. God damn, you just got old man chair. What's going on over there?
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, it's an old man chair. Yeah.
Yep. Let's see here.
I'm also really fidgety tonight for some reason. I have no idea why.
It's the Adderall. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
Speed which, I'll be right back. I gotta go fill up a glass with water.
All right. Matthew said,
I didn't say for drinking. I just gotta go fill it up.
I just gotta fill it up. This glass can't ever be dry, or else something horrible will happen. Matthews said both Ruby Ridge and Waco were PatCon operations, and he believed Oklahoma City was too, because while he wasn't involved in the latter, he knew of other PatCon guys who had been. In fact, Matthews told Jesse that the year prior to Oklahoma City bombing, he had seen Timothy McVeigh at a militia training camp in Texas. McVeigh, whose name he didn't know at the time, was with a German man, Andy the German, obviously, Andreas Strassmeyer. And they were instructing camp attendees in the art of converting flare guns into grenade launcher, explored previously in this book. After McVeigh was arrested, Matthews immediately recognized him and called Jarrett to tell him that this was the same man he saw at the Texas training camp. Jarrett assured Matthews that they, the FBI, already knew and told him to forget about it. Matthews said he was disturbed by this for a few reasons. For one, this indicated that the FBI probably had informants spying on each other. Secondly, if they were watching McVeigh and friends back then, they had likely continued watching them throughout the bombing plot. Matthews provided Jesse with emails between him and Jarrett, as well as other proof that he was whom he claimed to be, including awards he received from his undercover service. Much of what Matthews said fit with what Jesse already knew. The PatCon documents in his possession named the camp as an initial PatCon target, and Don Jarrett, the man Matthews named as his handler, appeared on several of the FBI investigatory reports about the bombing. Jesse also knew that McVeigh and Roger Moore had been involved in the creation of rocket and grenade launchers, and that such activity was of interest to PatCon. In addition, Matthews was just one of several informants and operatives who had crossed paths with McVeigh. And the German that Matthews saw with McVeigh sounded a lot like Andy Strassmeyer, like I said. Matthews told Jesse that he just wanted to tell his story before he died and inform the public about what had happened, so Jesse referred him to John Solomon, a former writer for the Associated Press and current editor of Newsweek. Solomon and his team spent 4 months confirming everything Matthews said. Solomon excitedly told Jesse that he had confirmed everything, and that the 8-page story, which was supposed to run on the last Monday of November 2011, was going to be incredible. It would really blow the cover off PatCon. When the story came out, however, while it featured Matthews predominantly on the cover and confirmed many of his stories, it never once mentioned PatCon and left out a lot of other crucial details, most of which dealt with provocateur activities. The real story had been quashed by the FBI, the DOJ, and the Obama administration. With only a few exceptions, other major media outlets have yet to report on either the existence or implication of, in the words of an Examiner article, the murderous covert program called PatCon. Putting the Newsweek fiasco behind him, Matthews agreed to testify at the July and of course what was done here to, silence the conventional news media, right, or the legacy media at this point. Also crazy that, as recently
to silence,
well, not hard at all, right?
Yeah.
Crazy that in as recently as the first Obama administration, Newsweek still did investigative journalism.
I mean, that was the end of it. Like that was
right.
like it's
that
like
was the end of it.
Eric Holder was pretty much the end of that.
Yep. And so, what they did with Newsweek in this particular instance is exactly what the administration does with social media, right?
Right.
It's exactly what they did. And just having a, for whatever you, feel about Elon Musk as an individual, it's interesting that you have like one Spurg Lord come in and stop complying with that type of thing, and then immediately things start changing. It's a little odd. It's interesting. There's a lot of control going on.
I ain't saying nothing. I ain't said nothing at all.
There's a lot of sluice gates, controlling the flow of information. And you might think this is some sort of lazy winding river of knowledge.
Oh, that was a pretty good one. You're getting better. You're getting better fast.
Y'all wrong. This is a flood control system. This is the Atchafalaya.
Atchafalaya. You had to know I was going to pounce.
Yeah, no, thanks. This is the Atchafalaya. This is a control water system.
You're much better at that one than you are the other one.
There we go.
How many times have you watched the first season of True Detective?
I've never seen it.
Wait.
No, I've never seen it. Yeah, I know. I'm told it's amazing, but I've never seen it.
Oh man.
Yeah. Anyway, putting the Newsweek fiasco behind him, Matthews agreed to testify at the July 2014 federal court trial, where Judge Waddups was to make a ruling about the FBI's release or withholding of the April 19th, 1995 OKC surveillance footage and other issues. Jesse believed that Matthews' testimony about his role in PatCon and his having seen McVeigh at the PatCon infiltrated militia training camp would help provide motive for the FBI's continued denial about the bombing's relationship to a sting operation and their withholding of surveillance footage from April 19th, 1995. Jesse told the judge that the reason the FBI could not find the tapes was that they would show that the person in the Ryder truck with McVeigh was one of theirs. The trial resulted in an entirely different conflict about other FBI shenanigans. Matthews feared his testimony would draw retaliation, and the judge took his concerns seriously, granting him permission to testify on CCTV from a remote facility whose location would be kept secret from the FBI. At the last minute, however, Matthews went missing. Neither Jesse nor Roger Charles, who was also in close contact with Matthews, could find him. Charles finally reached Matthews, who said he wasn't going to testify because FBI agent Adam Quirk had contacted him and told him to stand down, that it was best for everyone if he didn't testify, and made serious threats about what would happen if he did. Further, Quirk allegedly added if he couldn't get out of it, Matthews had better come down with a bad case of the I don't remembers. His former handler, Don Jarrett, allegedly repeated the warning. Ugh.
A bad case of the I don't remembers is that we're running out of Wendyisms. That might be the last. That might be the last zinger.
That might also be I mean, it's in quotes. She may actually be quoting. I think she may actually be quoting.
Yeah, that's a pretty like middle American.
Yeah.
It works.
Jesse then explained to presiding Judge Waddups. I really wish I knew what this guy's name was. What had happened and why his witness backed out. The judge was concerned and ordered the FBI to investigate the allegations of witness tampering. God damn it. Not surprisingly, the FBI found that there was no basis for the claims of threatening a witness. But when the judge learned that their investigation consisted of simply asking the FBI agent if he had threatened Matthews, he ordered them to conduct a more thorough investigation, a report of their findings, and set a date for evidentiary hearings in the matter. Waddup said that Matthews' testimony about PatCon would likely influence his decisions about the surveillance tapes, the original issue. Although the evidence before him led to a reasonable inference of wrongdoing by the FBI, he was going to give both sides a chance to set the record straight. During the November 2014 hearing, the FBI, not in the business of setting records straight, failed to provide a report of their findings. After Waddups expressed his displeasure, the FBI, a few days later, submitted an unindexed, redacted version of a report which claimed, in part, that because Matthew's former handler, Don Jarrett, was retired and no longer worked for the FBI, he was not required to answer any questions about his duties as an agent. Because it was a civil matter, the court could not issue subpoenas outside of the state of Utah. Jesse countered the FBI's denials of the allegations with emails, letters, affidavits, and other evidence supporting his claims, including some written by Matthews himself. An outraged Judge Waddups observed that the FBI's redacted report failed to dispel the court's concern and announced that he would adjourn the proceedings while he decided whether or not to implement the judicial oversight mechanism of appointing a special master who would investigate the FBI's witness tampering and ensure the Bureau's compliance with the court's orders. Further, Waddups, who said he was perplexed by the FBI's willful disregard of his court, told the FBI to prepare arguments concerning why he shouldn't hold them in contempt of court. The FBI insisted such measures were unnecessary and that the court had no basis or jurisdiction to impose oversight over the agency. Despite the FBI's objections, Waddups sustained the adjournment and reiterated his decision, telling both sides that the allegations were too important of an issue to leave with ambiguities. How funny that in this particular instance, during the Obama administration, the FBI is not an organ of the executive branch, right?
Right.
Is not subject to the oversight of state judges. Isn't that weird? Isn't that a little weird? Isn't that a little different from? Isn't that a little different from what's currently occurring?
That's a little different in the story we'll be hearing about today. You know.
Yeah, it's a little different from what's in the news as of this morning, this afternoon, hell, this evening. Yeah. So just it is. Imagine if the roles were reversed. I dare say. I
was going to say you're doing an aberration in the heartland of imagine if these roles were reversed.
Exactly. Oh my God. Oh yeah. Woodpit. Who is that other blonde woman reporter that caught the FBI taking control of her computer? Not Carol Howe. It was the other one. It was the other one involved in this. Yeah. Anyway, on April 30th, 2015, Judge Waddups filed an order appointing Magistrate Judge Dustin B. Phd as special master.
Wait, Woodpit. Yeah. Woodpit says the brother is impressive. Basically taught himself law. He was a lawyer.
He was. I mean, he's also no one was doing this type of thing anyway, right? So.
Okay. No, different guy. I thought we were talking about Jesse.
No. He means the female reporter.
Yeah.
Special master in the case, and at some point afterward, placed a seal on the case and a gag order on everyone involved, assumedly until Phd concludes his investigation into the FBI's alleged witness tampering. Waddups ordered the FBI to turn over an unredacted version of their earlier report, detailing their investigation of themselves, as well as a slew of other unredacted materials for Phd's review. If during his investigation the FBI claims that certain matters are privileged and not subject to disclosure to the court or Jesse, Phd will determine whether they are or not. Further, Phd will oversee the FBI's and Jesse's cross-examination of each other and their witnesses, including Roger Charles and Agent Quirk and Jarrett, in the interest of completing the record on this issue, and may ask witnesses additional questions as he believes in his discretion are appropriate to make a complete record. Pending the results of Phd's investigation, Waddups postponed further decisions about or investigations into the FBI's compliance or lack thereof, with Waddups' May 2011 order to turn over the surveillance tapes and related documents. If Pede's findings are unfavorable towards the FBI, Waddups may hold a new trial about the tapes and instruct Pede to oversee and enforce the FBI's compliance. Pede's investigation is ongoing and under seal, but as of January 2016, Special Master Pede was in the process of deposing witnesses. Really want to know what that has proceeded to in the intervening 9 years. In authorizing and initiating Pede's investigation, Waddups wasn't trying to embarrass the FBI and stick it to the man. Waddups is the man and was trying to ensure the integrity of his court as well as the larger American justice system. For 2 decades, critical eyewitnesses in the bombing case have claimed that the FBI had harassed them and pressured them into changing their stories. Some of their accounts are heartbreaking. Waddups' decision to initiate judicial investigation of the FBI's witness tampering and obstruction of justice in the Oklahoma City bombing case provides official acknowledgement of the types of abusive institutional practices that have proved not aberrations, but defining factors in the case. Hey, she said aberrations.
Aberrations.
Nevertheless, the FBI continues to deny they or any other government agency or official had any foreknowledge of the bombing or the existence of John Doe number 2, calling claims to the contrary ridiculous, speculative conspiracy theories, which means they're true.
Yeah.
So, Jesse's efforts have not. This is obviously like a book in and of itself, and to greater or lesser degree is in fact the book that is in front of us, right? Of lots of what Wendy has put together here would not have been possible without Jesse Trentadue. I would love to read an update on what he's doing. I don't know. Maybe we need to get Jesse Trentadue's X account. He probably doesn't have one because he's he's well beyond
beyond the X target demographic, but he can probably be found on Facebook Marketplace.
Jesse Trentadue was filing complaints versus the FBI for FOIA docs related to Roger Moore. Here is a post as of February 9th, 2024, from Wendy Painting herself. About to board a plane, but Jesse Trentadue just filed his complaint versus the FBI for FOIA docs related to Roger Moore, who is one of 2 major players in my second book, which will, I hope, have the longest bio of him yet. Oh boy. Incidentally, I not too long ago obtained the punch-out transcripts, his phone records, and more on Moore. When you hear what I have to say, you may laugh, cry, and or flip out. I know I am. I came within an inch of missing my flight to type this, lol. Anyway, plan to discuss this and other stuff on a podcast in the not too distant future. So, yeah. And very exciting. And she also found a picture of Jesse Trentadue. Hold on, I'm gonna pop
his picture's so perfect. He looks like a character from Twin Peaks.
No, this is so good that I'm actually going to I'm going to share this tab instead. Here is Bird Wendy. Jesse Trentadue found this meme of him, and it appears he likes it. Does anyone here know who made this? This is from June of last year. Bless her heart. She does not know the Dark MAGA, but
right.
Wonderful.
Yeah, what? Who did make a Dark MAGA Jesse Trentadue meme? Like that's who was that?
Amazing. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Woodpit 420, by the way, is on the Wind Dog roller coaster. He went from F yeah, Wind Dog to come on, Wendy in 1 minute.
He's like, yeah, this podcast. Yeah. Oh my God. I want her second book so bad. I want it so bad. She's never going to finish it.
She just needs help. She needs inspiration
in the heartland of the real.
Yeah, and maybe some other places.
Oh my God.
I can't say that. She's never going to come on the show now.
You are such an amazing creep. Beautiful. I always have the world's most horned up co-hosts. You know, it is a miracle. It is a miracle. It occurs somehow. I don't know what it is.
Woodpit, any chance? Woodpit says she's nice. She might come on with you. I have obliterated any chance of that happening in the last 2 episodes.
I think that I might like just ambient, like my presence might increase the testosterone levels of my associates. Right.
Yeah,
like I have some sort of like aura based buff that just makes people get turned into complete horn dogs. But anyway,
now he says Sandy has to seduce her, sending me on an e-girl mission.
Well,
that was the perfect noise.
So glad I'm a wife guy. Jesse's efforts have not always met with success, but the failures are noteworthy for the insight they provide. For instance, in late 2006, Jesse requested 12 CIA documents pertaining to the bombing and its subsequent investigation. Suspecting that the documents implicate the involvement of German intelligence operative Andreas Strassmeyer and his relationship to McVeigh. The CIA refused to turn them over, naturally claiming that to do so would jeopardize national security. In 2010, after years of appeals, a federal judge ruled that the CIA was not required to release the documents. The judge added, however, that it was clear the CIA and DOJ were cooperating in the prosecution of Mr. McVeigh. In response to the ruling, Jesse dismissed the national security excuse, calling it the King's X, the ultimate protection, a fail-safe way to ensure that embarrassing information remains hidden. Jesse explained to reporters that the ruling was a good thing because, minimally, the existence of the documents revealed either that the CIA unlawfully involved itself in domestic matters or that there was a foreign connection it was legitimately investigating. The idea that the CIA is not involved in domestic matters it's
like the most polite fig leaf. It's just not even really polite, but like it is like one of those fig leaves that's just is used to shove so much shit under the rug. I mean, who was Jolly West working with? Definitely not the CIA.
You would have to be a tremendous moron to think that the CIA was not involved in domestic politics, right? You would just have to be the most brain damaged goofball to believe that for even a moment. But it wasn't the last time Jesse Trentadue encountered the looming and invisible specter of national security. It happened again when he stumbled upon the existence of the FBI's sensitive informant program, a program that judges with the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals equated to FBI misconduct. The snitches in this program were not your run-of-the-mill informants. These were carefully selected and placed within management and executive levels of influential major media outlets, such as ABC and CBS. The FBI program also recruited and planted informants among the staffs of federal judges, congressmen, and senators, as well as in the White House and defense teams in high-profile criminal cases, including Timothy McVeigh's. Jesse filed a FOIA asking for a copy of the FBI sensitive informant manuals that would explain how they recruited and placed their plans. I thought they'd come back and say, we would never do that because that would be illegal and unconstitutional. Instead, they came back and said, yeah, we do that. We have manuals on that, but you can't have them because of national security. The judge in that case wasn't buying it and demanded they return with unredacted copies of the manuals, although this has yet to occur. Would love to read one of those. That would 100% be the third book we read on LMD if we had a copy. Though this briefly appeared in the news, the existence, scope, and breadth of the program and its implications were largely overlooked, even among civil libertarians, highly vocal outrage over the post-9/11, post-Snowden spying scandals. Even when failing to obtain the specific information he seeks, Jesse Trentadue still manages to contribute to the public's understanding of the inner workings and secret machinations of the FBI generally. Although one DOJ attorney mockingly testified that there was no indication that the FBI was a nefarious secret record-keeping has a nefarious record-keeping system, it turned out they do. Referring to documents suddenly discovered just prior to McVeigh's execution, a 2007 National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers press release asked how the single greatest record-keeping agency of the United States ends up losing important information, especially information crucial to highly public capital cases. And in any event, they are legally required to turn over in even the most mundane of cases. As it so happens, the answer to that question is that the FBI maintained, and assumedly continues to maintain, their very own memory hole, where the Bureau's real X-files are kept, inaccessible even to the prosecutors and most FBI agents.
It might even be too optimistic to believe that they're keeping it. Like, shit's just maybe gone, you know?
Well, it's crazy that, you know, they produced 3 edited videos for Jesse Trent to do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, they kept it.
I'm sure there's layers of stuff that's kept, but I'm sure there's stuff that's also just gone. You know,
I mean, they're very these groups are incredibly arrogant.
That's
right?
true. Yeah, that is
so
true.
I think the idea that they would be cautious enough to just, like, you know, burn it. I don't know. It's plausible to me that they would have kept all of that stuff. Or, you know, it's also still a vast and labyrinthine bureaucracy.
Right.
And they may legitimately have things they meant to have destroyed. Right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
In 2004, reporter John Solomon first learned of the system, which at the time of the bombing was called the Zero Files. After, wow, they fuck. It's just mixing fiction and reality. There we go. After Solomon's discovery, aided by FBI whistleblowers, Jesse, trying to figure out where all the FBI's information about their investigation into his brother's death had disappeared to, began to unravel its threads. The Zero Files are a special set of secret files kept by the FBI specifically for the purpose of obstructing justice. According to FBI agent Ricardo Ojeda, Ricardo Ojeda, who himself was assigned to the OKC investigation, the Zero Files contained reports and information the FBI would not generally want disclosed, and which were kept separate from a specific case file. The files were kept internally and typically not turned over to either prosecution or defense attorneys during criminal trials. This includes exculpatory evidence gathered during the investigation that is favorable to the defendant, that may help establish the innocence of those accused of criminal acts. The system was nothing new, even in 1995. It had originally been called the June Files and was created in the 1970s, renamed the Zero Files in the early 1990s, and renamed again in 1996, this time becoming the iDrive Files. Discovery of the Zero Files led to the initiatives of other organizations, media outlets, and attorneys that further detailed the existence of such systems. Jesse's actions specifically revealed a separate but similar FBI file hiding classification called the S drive. They just basically, like, every single time the public figures out what it's called, they change the fucking name of it. Right? So they just change the name of it so that you can't specifically request it. And they can say, well, you didn't say that you wanted the S drive.
It works on my computer all the time.
Right. A brief Iowa Law Review article in 2006 describes some of the troubling issues raised by the Zero Files. In 2006, the iDrive added that the file hiding systems only exacerbated the already existing issue of discovery abuses. The article noted that the FBI's routine failure to turn over discoverable information during criminal trials, citing the trials of Timothy McVeigh, Ted Kaczynski, and the Ruby Ridge defendants as an example. These and other cases illustrated that even when the FBI knows where evidence critical to an investigation is located, history suggests that the FBI may be reluctant to disclose it. This is part of what many law journal articles and news reports have identified as a much larger and endemic pattern of prosecutorial misconduct. While withholding exculpatory evidence from defense attorneys is the most common form of such misconduct that can occasionally result in overturning a conviction, there is little to no recourse for holding specific prosecutors responsible, and oversight to guard against such abuses is virtually non-existent. Yeah, I mean, of course.
It's like sort of a flaw in the system. Like it's like who watches the watchdog? Nobody. The dog's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's incredibly frustrating, right? It is incredibly frustrating to have to rely upon this type of thing.
I think it's just one of these instances where, because I'm from Louisiana, I have a warped perspective on everything like sort of government and authority related, where I'm just like, of course they were lying, like of course, of course this bridge goes to nowhere.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's also, the other side of this coin is when you have something like a Soros district attorney who just doesn't enforce the law. Right, just doesn't prosecute.
Right, yeah. So
right? That is the other side of it. There's the you don't include exculpatory evidence. You just like make a mockery of the alleged sanctity of the process, right? And then the other one is you just occupy the chair and don't use the powers, right? So I obviously don't have a solution here other than, America becoming a country of 100 million. But
I'm down for that as soon as I can ensure that I'm going to be on the right side of the 100 million.
Well, sure, obviously. But you have a society where people are not operating according to, filial piety or honor, or a shared belief in, a shared belief in the liberal project of Republican government. Like, if people don't have these things, if you don't have a society of high trust, then you will have more instances of things like this.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately seems to be the case, and clearly because this happens all over the place, in both directions, we just acknowledge that this is a fault in the system, and we don't actually have a solution to this.
Yeah,
it's just a catastrophic failure.
Look at that gaping hole in the ground that goes straight to hell.
Yep, exactly.
We ain't got no idea what to do about it.
The existence of these and other elaborate file hiding systems goes a long way in explaining the FBI's continued confidence in withholding information about the bombing while deceptively denying its existence. For a short time, national news outlets reported on how the FBI's practice of hiding evidence in secret databases was not an aberrant one, confined to a few cases. Rather, it was routine, part of a much broader and ongoing pattern. In 2009, a media studies organization found the FBI's rate of failing to turn over public information was 5 times higher than that of the other major federal agencies. If information were a river, said a 2009 Associated Press article, the FBI would be a dam. Using the case of Jesse Trentadue to illustrate this, it is really weird that I used a sluice gate in the exact same way, like
it's the right metaphor.
10 minutes ago. It is the right metaphor, but okay. The issue comes to bear not only on the supposed right to a fair trial, but also the government's ability to cover up its own mistakes and misconduct, such as those that occurred in the death of Kenneth Trentadue and the Oklahoma City bombing. An Oklahoma Law Review article about the precedents set by Jesse Trentadue's efforts argued for more transparency in government, noting that while government officials can always be counted on to tout their exploits and successes, they could also be reliably counted to hide their mistakes, abuses, and deceptions. The Trentadue case, concluded the article, demonstrates the need to reveal government secrets in order to expose the possible cover-up of a murder, and exemplifies how even minor factual data could expose a conspiracy that stretches through several government agencies. PatCon, by the way, involved several government agencies, as did North Star and Alliance. Referring specifically to PatCon, Jesse said, "Let me put it to you this way. You've got the Secret Service involved, the ATF, FBI, DOD, CIA. Really? Everybody but the IRS." Little did he know the IRS was involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course they were.
Yes. She didn't say that. I just added that.
Yeah.
But you should expect that the IRS was involved. You should expect it was all of them. Anything that you can do enforcement through, anything you can control a narrative through, any sort of pressure you can put on someone, you should assume that group is in on it. And there is no government agency people fear more than the IRS. So when Eric Holder was nominated to become Attorney General in 2008, Jesse wrote a scathing letter to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Patrick Leahy, informing him of the key role that Holder, in his capacity as Deputy Attorney General, played in the cover-up of his brother's torture and murder. This was not just his personal shocking opinion, explained Jesse, but one supported by the DOJ's own records. He suggested the nominating committee look into this and close by strongly advising against appointing Holder to the position. Sure enough, only a few years after Holder became Attorney General, strange connections began to surface between PatCon, its operative Matthews, his FBI handler Don Jarrett, government-sanctioned gun running, sting operations gone awry. Yeah, remember Fast and the Furious? Hundreds of violent murders, a little gun store in Arizona called Lone Wolf Trading Company, and Eric Holder. As it turned out, Holder went a long way in covering up and containing the Fast and Furious scandal that broke in 2010. Although his hiding and destroying related documents from congressional investigators and authorizing DOJ officials to hinder access to the majority of other ones. Fast and Furious, said Jesse Trentadue, is part of the legacy of PatCon. It was by no means the last scandal whose trial led back to Holder, who ironically spent an inordinate amount of time publicly expressing his fear of radical lone wolf terrorists, guns, and the need to combat these evils. Well, yeah, man, he's creating his own fucking job security. What sort of moron wouldn't do that, huh?
I love these sorts of recursive meltdowns.
Yeah. Speaking of combating these evils, you just kick the stool out and are hanging yourself now, huh? Yeah. I love these things. I have so many reasons to live. Ack.
I already warned everybody. Not today.
Not today.
Not until if I'm going to suicide myself, I'm going to wait till after these house burning episodes. You know, look to your left, and there's a noose. Always have hanging, and you're just like, not today, old friend. Not today. Speaking of combating these evils. After the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing and until the time of McVeigh's 2001 execution, the FBI and ATF made continuous announcements about how their use of undercover agents and paid informants, whose numbers increased markedly after the bombing, had led to the uncovering and thwarting of violent plots brewed by McVeigh-like extremist conspiracy theorists. In fact, prior to April 19, 1995, the FBI was investigating 100 cases of domestic terrorism, which by 1998 had grown to over 900, and continued to grow as the millennium neared. Media outlets and government officials praised the FBI's covert interventions for preventing these disastrous plots from coming to fruition, successes that went unquestioned and seemed to negate the damage from unacknowledged or aggressively denied intelligence failures in the OKC bombing. You okay?
Yeah. I'm suppressing so many sneezes. I'm getting seasonal allergies, unfortunately.
Oh, we already had that season here.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
I got them real bad.
Oh no! I'm doxing myself. I'm doxing my longitude. or my latitude. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, the thing is, it's like, wow, it's weird how you have all these additional cases, right? It's weird how you have these additional cases, and it's like, oh, well, the FBI budget was increasing, so they could start more of them, right? Like, oh, they had more money, so they could just, get more agent provocateurs and have more plots.
And it's absolutely the rule, like that, when federal government agencies get a budget increase, they spend it all, because if you don't spend it all, then your budget goes back down the next year.
Yep. Yeah, you know what? Actually, you know what should happen in the federal government? Groups that don't spend their budget should get rewarded.
That's yeah, that's right.
Like, it should go directly to pay the debt, and then the group should get rewarded. Like, that's just.
But without the extra budget, how do we reward them?
What do you mean?
What do you use as the reward?
I mean, you just pay them something like slightly less than the interest on the debt.
We could still get returns on this. Yeah.
Yeah, you pay them something less than the cost of.
Oh man, see, I love that sort of thing. Let's turn the federal government into a contest.
It is. What do you think it is?
Let's turn it a contest so you can save the most money.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, don't do anything. Good job, guys. Anyway. Only after 9/11 did it become clear to growing numbers of people that the use of the phrase terror plot by authorities does not always equate to a concrete level of danger, or sometimes to any danger whatsoever other than the FBI's own undercover counterterrorism operations and methods. According to the FBI and other national security managers, their post-9/11 efforts to thwart domestic terrorist plots using covert methods, including electronic and physical surveillance and undercover agents and paid informants, have been wildly successful. However, around 2007 and increasing and exponentially thereafter, a growing number of news articles and investigative reports, watchdog organizations, and legal scholars have raised seriously troubling questions about these practices. A 2011 news report said the FBI had created a massive network of spies to prevent another domestic attack, but then asked if they were busting terrorism plots or leading them. A 2014 Human Rights Watch report, among others, indicated the latter. As it turns out, undercover FBI operatives regularly provided cash, explosives, guns, and other material, and supplied the terroristic ideas and plans to targeted individuals, after which FBI agents swooped in to arrest them for plotting violent conspiracies. With the goal of identifying and neutralizing potential lone wolves, FBI agents and informants target tens of thousands of law-abiding people, seeking to identify those disgruntled few who might participate in a plot given the means and opportunity. And then, in case after case, the government provides the plot, the means, and the opportunity. The next step in the process involves the arrest of the terrorist, or in some cases, pack of terrorists, and an FBI press conference announcing another foiled plot. Sensational headlines follow. Yeah, I mean, what was it? The planned kidnapping, just a recent one. The planned kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh man, yeah.
Which was
what a show.
100% an FBI plot. And all of the guys who were accused were exonerated because it was an FBI plot.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
They should have made somebody go to jail. Like, they should have made
yeah, someone should have gone to jail, not those guys. And in fact, I almost think that one of the reasons why that was done was to, and hear me out here. One of the reasons why that was done was to try to lionize Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh man,
right?
That didn't. Oh man,
that was an attempt was made. An attempt was made, but it didn't really work out. And she's still like weirdly high profile.
Yeah.
For being like pretty ineffective. Yeah. So like she's clearly just like they're trying to like you know, do some old kayfabe to like feed her. But you know, people have to actually go to prison for that in order to make it real. So anyway, a 2015 Creighton Law Review article explained how use of the highly emotive term terrorist plot is often very misleading, as many times no plot existed prior to the intervention of undercover operators, and serious questions exist about whether or not a plot ever would have existed without the intervention of the government, most often the FBI. That is not to say that no threats exist or that the counterterrorist agencies have never prevented an act of terrorism. Only that the claimed number of legitimate plots have been greatly exaggerated, and that when the details of the case are examined closely, they often appear to have been hatched from the minds of government operatives themselves. As they did during COINTELPRO in the 1960s and PATCON in the 1990s, the FBI sometimes creates terrorist cells or organizations precisely to recruit and ensnare individuals, getting them to voice interest in committing violent acts, many times so grandiose that these perpetrators would have no inclination, technical skill, or means of carrying them out. In doing so, violent ideologies and would-be insurgents' will to action is strengthened and encouraged. Moreover, the FBI, when no better, more legitimate target presents itself, has a habit of going after vulnerable people, including those with intellectual and mental disabilities, and the indigent. The government, acting through informants, then actively develops the plot, persuades and sometimes pressures the target to participate, and provides resources to carry it out. Another result of this is an exaggerated public perception of terroristic threats. In a vicious yet ongoing cycle, the DOJ uses the foiled terror plot script as a mantra that reinforces skewed perceptions, generates public fear, and justifies continued civil rights violations and abuses, and invites further dissent, which can be used to frame more so-called terrorists. We already mentioned that one, but I mean, the number of wasn't there one where there was a like some literally retarded Arab kid who got sort of agent provocateured into like carrying a backpack that contained like a dummy bomb, and they were trying to use that one.
Yeah,
but he was such a drooling moron, and so obviously like just thought he had a fucking friend that it got thrown out. I think that was the
God, that one barely clipped my memory file, and my memory file is pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's what that one was. See if you can Jamie that up, maybe.
I'm going to start with literally retarded Arab kid and bomb plot.
Wonderful. All right. It gives you instructions on how to do it. That's what AI is for. The FBI's creation and subsequent thwarting of its own terrorism plots has become a common occurrence, involving not just a few instances, but nearly all high-profile terrorism cases since 9/11. If not, I might add many before that, and also I might add not Wendy Painting, but me, 9/11. The fake terror plots are so prevalent at this point that the tactic and phenomenon is becoming its own field of academic study.
Ahmed Mohammed, Sudanese-American high school student living in Irving, Texas. He brought a homemade digital clock to school to show his teachers, but it was this was more.
That's a different one. Yeah.
This was more, what's a good word for this? Nefarious.
Wonderful.
That word matters.
A few examples of the exhaustive number of federally sponsored terrorism plots or their FBI prepped plotters that have received widespread media attention include, but is by no means limited to, the DC and New York subway bombing plots, the Christmas tree bomber in Portland, Oregon, the Liberty City 7 in Miami, accused of conspiring to blow up the Chicago Sears Tower, and the second underwear bomber, to name a few. Not confined to Islamic jihadists, the FBI operatives do not discriminate and have been implicated in a number of other left-wing anarchist and right-wing plots, including that of the Hutari militia in Michigan. Brandon Darby, a paid FBI informant / agent provocateur who infiltrated left-leaning groups, proposed a plan to bomb a bookstore I myself frequent in Austin, Texas. Darby's deceptions directly resulted in the death of a peace activist, among other things. Sandbatch, I'm sure you picked up here that she mentioned she's in Austin, Texas, where you currently reside.
I just filed it away.
you put it in the zero file. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Protest over.
Wait, no. If you want to know how bad it is, I'm actually on her Twitter page trying to see if I can figure out what part of town she's in.
Oh my fucking Lord! Oh God! Look, it's been 9 years. She could be anywhere.
That's true.
Although a bookstore that she herself frequents is probably a good fucking bookstore, to be real. So,
did she give the name of it?
No, she said a bookstore I myself frequent. Just say Brandon Darby bookstore bombing plot. Try to figure out what. I'm sure that it will say what it is. Owen Zaleski, heartwarming. The FBI honeypot doesn't discriminate. Technically, a honeypot is a different kind of thing, but yes, you're on the right track. Let's see. Protest over learning that this or that political activist has been an informer or agent all along, or that those who share the same political beliefs as you have been targeted and trapped are contained within the political milieu immediately affected by these practices, to the detriment of everyone. While the left touted, she do be spitting though. While the left touted bookstore bomber provocateur Brandon Darby as an example of how the U.S. government is using informants to wage war on dissent, he became widely respected, a hero even among the right. Unfortunately, both sides are readily willing to defend those in their camp targeted by overreaching undercover activities, and too readily willing to throw those in the other camp under the bus, without pausing to reflect how the same repressive measures used against one side one day will inevitably be used against the other the next. Well, we do need to be able to use political power, but...
All right, side plot. How far from my house do you think this bookstore is?
2,000 feet.
It's a little more, but not much more.
You're a half mile away. All right.
Yeah.
Stake it out. Stake it out, Sandbatch.
It's okay. Wendy.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
You don't do that. Don't commit crimes.
Honestly,
for library mass destruction.
Do not do. This show should not result in any plots. Okay, just FYI, we're not provocateurs. It seems you can't go anywhere these days without a Fed trying to hand you a bomb and some blueprints. Recently, a mentally ill homeless man in my hometown of Rochester, New York, was arrested for his own terrorist plot after the FBI drove him to Walmart, bought him a machete and other tools of terror, and pressured him into voicing his desire to hack up people at a local bar on New Year's Eve. The arrest immediately made national news, and everybody was freaking out. One local news article actually reported that the man had been arrested for carrying out an attack, as if the machete massacre of 2016 had already occurred. The mayor canceled the city's fireworks so that more police could patrol the city looking for terrorists. It took about 24 hours before the FBI's own role in the totally bogus machete plot surfaced, and an additional 24 hours of outrage and cries of injustice before the incident was forgotten. Wonderful, wonderful. The media cycle is a hell of a beast, isn't it? I have no checks, so I must need no plots. Got it. Are schemes involved? Yeah, I mean, once again, plots, schemes, machinations, designs of a nefarious character, and other similar synonymous goings on and doings. Not encouraged. Merely talked about from the safety of the present as we reflect on the past. Never in the future tense will we consider these things. So
plots I have laid, inductions dangerous. Shakespeare's
yes,
okay.
Yes, I know. I do know that's Shakespeare. I do not remember what it's from.
Richard III.
Wonderful. Let's see here. I'm more of a John Falstaff man.
No, Henry's that.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Even when terrorism-related charges are thrown out or reduced, sentencing delayed and convictions overturned due to investigatory misconduct, overreach, and entrapment. Media coverage of these developments tends to pale in comparison to the DOJ/FBI initial announcement that yet another terrorist has been stopped. Thereby, nothing is done to reduce the public's unwarranted fears or lessen their ignorance. This is necessary because if government-disseminated threats about terrorism fail to result in observable and memorable spectacles or arrests, national security managers would soon lose the public's support and money, as would untold thousands of paid informants. However, if accused terrorists are arrested for plots that never would have been hatched without government intervention, it calls into question the original information leading to the surveillance agency's self-promoting claims of having foiled a terrorist plot and the legitimacy of the diabolical methods used to do it. Without access to the complete records of the FBI surveillance and sting operations, and we know how that goes, it is very difficult to know if the FBI's actions stopped anything at all. However, because these operations are covert and because itemizing details of failed sting operations would raise the possibility of defamation of the suspect, there cannot be a public record of all sting operations, especially unsuccessful ones or those that have clearly caused violence. The creation of terrorism is essential to waging and winning a war on terror, and the FBI's role in post 9/11 terrorism plots was foreshadowed by and is just one more legacy of the murder of Kenneth Trentadue and its cover-up. PatCon and Oklahoma City bombing, and its cover-up, the PatCon and Oklahoma City bombing. The difference is the OKC bombing plot actually came to fruition and resulted in 168 deaths. Maybe more if we count the extra leg in the truck from the truck.
Right.
If we are to accept, as more than one federal judge seems to have, that the Oklahoma City bombing occurred in the context of and had connections to a larger sting operation, and that somehow this sting operation went awry, we must ask why and how. Personally, I wonder how, given everything we now know, it is so difficult for some to believe that a federal counterterrorism sting operation could get that far out of control. A more heated and less frequently posed question is, at what point does a plot to entrap become a sanctioned plot to kill, directly or through an intentional looking away? At what point does a so-called terror plot become an FBI plot, or the plot of another national security-minded agency? Where does the boundary lie? Even as information continues to surface that makes counter-narratives about the bombing all the more viable, and even as gaping questions about the plot linger, strong resistance to the evidence still exists, and those who ask questions, victims, survivors, historians, and journalists alike, are labeled themselves as or equated to conspiracy theorists, and at worst, to terrorists. If for 2 decades and 3 presidential administrations, such great effort has been made to tell a patently false story about the worst case of domestic terrorism on American soil, a story consistently told wherever it is politically expedient, we have to ask questions about the facts and circumstances of other mass spectacles of violence, however uncomfortable this feels. Not to disrespect or cause further harm to victims, as some have claimed such questioning does, but to gain insight. Only through an accurate understanding of any horrific event is there the possibility of preventing similar ones in the future. If our understanding and knowledge of an event is inaccurate, ineffective, and unnecessary, measures will result. As it stands currently, the full story of the Oklahoma City bombing and and therefore its real implications is, as Jesse Trentadue observed, the story of what is missing.
That has to be her mic drop. That has to be her mic drop. Yeah, I can tell too, because you were sliding into your Edward R. Murrah voice.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah,
I know she when she hits it. So, that's Aberration in the Heartland of the Real. We're only a little over time. That's amazing.
I know. Yeah. Well, I wasn't as chattery as I normally was because I'm on amphetamine salts given to me by a stranger. But the like I was also
that would be your handler.
Yes. I think he might be, because he's tracked me across several cities. Like, this is a guy I met outside a cafe in New Orleans called Flores. Flores. And I don't want to give too much away about him because I'm always afraid when these people are going to like just drop back into my life. But I've actually encountered him in 3 cities. I've met him in Los Angeles as well, and he just like sort of careens between Los Angeles, Taos, Mexico City, New Orleans, and Austin. And like fuck. I also like somebody at the beginning of the page. Somebody I think it was Lightning. Somebody asked me how I was doing. It says, took random amphetamine salts out of an Altoids 10. I'm of sound mind right now. Yeah, of course.
Oh man, curiously strong. That's the.
I will say, and it's like a little bit of a letdown here at the end, but there's a reason for that, and that's because like the way that monograph structure that I've been talking about.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things of the monograph structure is that like the first the introduction chapter and the ending chapter, or whenever you do a lot of like circular material and you just say the same thing over and over and over again a lot. And that's clearly what was going on here. No new shit came to light, and we didn't even get one Jolly West mention.
That's fine.
Which means we need to do a whole show on just Jolly West, which is good.
Which is do that. Fortunate, because that's the plan. So, we're gonna do Jolly West. It's gonna be next. It's gonna be Cinco de Mayo. It's gonna be the 5th of May. So we're gonna do the first one.
Lunes de Mayo,
and then so that'll sort of be our interstitial, and then we will start Library of Mass Destruction season 2 on May the 12th. So we're not really doing there's not really a gap. There's a different book. So I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Sandbatch? Final thoughts on Aberration in the Heartland of the Real.
I think it's thus far, and I've read a lot of history, I think it's probably the best history book written in the last 15 years. It's actually a serious achievement. And because I mean, I started doing stuff with you and Mike, and you all sort of gaslit me a little bit into well, I don't know, that movie y'all tried to that movie y'all hauled Dan in to watch yesterday was a bad one. Well, look, again,
bad. We watched them blind, so we didn't know.
But I've come to expect random conspiracy theory book, but no, this one was, and then this one. I've been pleasantly surprised at every episode of it. Up to, but I kind of knew the epilogue was going to be a little grad studenty. But actually, new shit did come to light, which is that Wendy is findable.
God damn it! Do not seek her out, you weirdo.
I wonder how many times she and I, because I mean, I'm sure it's not a big town, man.
Okay. Well, before we hatch a plot to stalk the author of a book we've covered, which we not be doing.
Putting the mass destruction in Library of Mass Destruction.
No, did it? Yeah. But yeah, in any case, we're gonna pass on that. So I think this was a great one to open on. I had a lot of fun over the last 81 or so hours of reading this to you all and doing color commentary with first Hudson and most recently Mr. Sandbatch.
It's a long time to spend with a book.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously it would have gone faster if I was just reading it straight through, but
it's also not as fun.
Absolutely. Let's see. We have some questions in the chat. Let's see. So yeah, Wood Pit. Yes, absolutely. We are done. That was the end of the book. Penultimo, you guys are still covering None Dare Call It Conspiracy after this, right? That is correct. We're doing the special on Jolyon West. We're reading some primary sources, and then we are moving on to None Dare Call It Conspiracy. I eagerly await Wendy Painting's future work. I hope she follows me back at some point. But I am aware that we are not entirely politically aligned. She is more
is
neutral.
She a shitlib?
No, I think she's really more. I think she's more politically neutral. I think she may be, one of the I would say one of the last principled civil libertarians, maybe.
Yeah. She's a woman.
Well, that is the cross
she's politically she's a woman.
So true. What I mean, if it was different, it would be God damn. I see Owen Zaleski get an entropy. We will have an entropy on May 5th. And yeah. So I guess we'll cut it. We'll see you next time. 7 p.m. Monday, May 5th, the year of our Lord 2025. Thanks for coming.
We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason if we dig deep in our history and our doctrine, and remember that we are not descended from fearful men, not from men who feared to write, to associate, to speak, and to defend the causes that were for the moment unpopular. We must not confuse dissent with disloyalty. Good night.